She should take a look at herself. Hu Yiru heard Xiang Jiai's words and followed up. Just as she finished speaking, everyone saw Yun Jian look straight into Shinji's eyes without fear. She ignored Xiang Jiai and Hu Yiru's words and replied to Shinji with a cold smile. We've been in the Inhun group for more than 10 years. You've tried to assassinate me 309 times in front of me and 109 times behind my back. Every time you've lost and left in a sorry state. Shinji, you actually didn't recognize me? There was a slight sneer in Yun Jian's words, but everyone heard them clearly. Shinji's pupils constricted at the speed everyone could see clearly. She then confirmed Yun Jian's identity right in front of Xiang Jiai, Hu Yiru, Mai Chen and everyone else. She exclaimed at Yun Jian, you're the one who saved me. Chapter 1744. You're 006. Shinji exclaimed to Yun Jian in front of everyone. Everyone was stunned at the sight. Yun Jian, who stood in front of Shinji, raised the red arc with a smirk and spoke to Shinji coldly. Do you remember when you lost to me for the 409th time and yelled at me? I'll remember you even if you turn into ashes? 095, I didn't think that you wouldn't recognize me after such a short time. When Yun Jian and Shinji were in Inhun, they'd always refer to each other by their numbers. Because in Inhun, everyone only had a number, not a code name. So when Yun Jian and Shinji met, the words they used the most were their numbers. 095 was Shinji's number back then. Yun Jian had an indescribable feeling towards Shinji. This feeling was different from the hatred she felt towards her enemies, and also different from the protection she felt towards her own people. Or to put it another way, in Yun Jian and Shinji's subconscious, they'd already turned each other from mortal enemies to rivals. In the early years, the children who were caught and sent to Inhun organization were all in a state of killing each other. But later on only a few of them survived. And there were only one or two outstanding people. Without a doubt, Yun Jian and Shinji were the most outstanding of their batch of children. In that inhumane world back then, the reason why Yun Jian and Shinji were more outstanding and powerful than the others was because they saw each other as rivals. They wanted nothing more than to surpass each other, or to stand at a position where no one could touch them. If a person could meet a rival, that was without a doubt a very lucky thing. Because when you see someone who's as strong as you as a rival, you'll do your best to climb up. When you reach the highest point, you'll look back and realize that you're already standing at a position where ordinary people can never touch you. Yun Jian and Shinji had been like this back in Inhun, encouraging each other. But neither of them would reveal this relationship. Therefore, even though Yun Jian and Shinji were women, they were able to trample over the so-called stronger men and become one of the 3 people who walked out of Inhun alive. This was why Yun Jian had revealed her identity to Shinji as soon as she saw him. Yun Jian and Shinji's conversation attracted everyone's attention. This was especially true for Xiang Jiai and Hu Yiru. Just now, the two of them had criticized Yun Jian for being so pretentious. Now their expressions were extremely ugly. Xiang Jiai knew that Yun Jian was a guest at Luo Berry's house. Although she knew that Yun Jian was the young madam of Inhun Group, she didn't know what Inhun Group was and didn't think that Yun Jian was very powerful. Wasn't she just a fence-sitter who relied on men to get to the top? But hearing Yun Jian and Shinji's conversation, Xiang Jiai was stunned. She stared at Yun Jian and Shinji and exclaimed, "Do you really know each other? I thought we didn't know each other just now. Didn't Shinji not know Yun Jian just now? How was this possible?" Yun Jian really did know the leader of the Soul Devourer group. Naturally, no one paid any attention to Xiang Jiai's exclamation. Shinji didn't see Xiang Jiai as a person at all. After acknowledging Yun Jian, Shinji studied Yun Jian from head to toe. Then he clicked his tongue and continued, "You've changed your face and you're blaming me for not recognizing you. 006, our grudge will never end in this lifetime." The grudge Shinji was referring to was the oath Shinji had made before that he would defeat Yun Jian one day. "I'll be waiting." Yun Jian's lips curled into a faint smile. Then she glanced at Shinji indifferently. "What are you going to do by raising a puppet?" Raising a puppet? Yun Jian had just met Shinji, hadn't she? How did she know that Shinji was going to raise a puppet? Was she just making things up? Everyone in the distance was shocked again. They didn't know that Yun Jian had already guessed it. Someone is buying puppets. One puppet can be sold for $1 million USD. Shinji walked over to a bench and sat down. He looked at Yun Jian calmly. "You have 50 million USD for every mission. Do you really need that much money?" Yun Jian stood where she was lazily and chatted with Shinji about mundane matters in front of the dumbfounded crowd. Everyone was flabbergasted by what she did. But what made Xiang Jiai, Hu Yiru, and the others even more flabbergasted was what Shinji said next. When Shinji heard Yunjian's words, he immediately stood up from his seat. In front of everyone he glared at Yunjian. Chapter 1745. All professional assassins and agents had a price tag when they went on missions. Also, assassins and agents usually made deals through the assassin website. Yunjian had logged into the assassin website before. Every assassin or agent had their own account on the official assassin website. Usually, when they accepted missions, they would do business on this special agent killer website. Yunjian and Shinji used to be assassins from Anhun. After they debuted, they had their own accounts on the assassin website. Their account names were their code names. The website would also evaluate the starting price of their missions based on their abilities and achievements. When Yunjian and Shinji were first evaluated on the assassin website, their starting price was the same. But as the number of missions and success rates increased, the difference gradually widened. Now Yunjian's starting price for a mission had been raised to 100 million USD, while Shinji's starting price had been raised to 50 million USD. This starting price was the official price given by the website after evaluating an assassin or agent. Shinji wasn't weak. She might not be as strong as Yunjian, but she was only slightly weaker than Yunjian. But the official price given by the assassin website for Yunjian was 2 times higher than Shinji's. This was why Shinji wasn't convinced. Yunjian and Shinji's conversation was very normal. To Yunjian and Shinji, their conversation was as normal as eating and sleeping. But in the ears of the surrounding people, they were so scared that their souls almost fell out. When Yunjian said that Shinji's starting price for a mission was 50 million USD, Xiangjiai, Huyiru, and Mai-chen's jaws almost dropped. What kind of mission is this? 50 million USD? 50 million USD. If converted to RMB, wouldn't that be 300 million? 300 million. As long as Shinji went out on a mission, he would be richer than even Xiangjiai, who had been pampered since she was young, put all her money together. This series of words had already frightened Xiangjiai and the others so much that their faces turned pale. But what was worse was that Shinji said that Yunjian could earn 100 million USD for a mission. That would be 600 million yuan if converted to RMB? Could it be that Yunjian was also an assassin or a secret agent? She was actually so rich. Mai-chen and Su Mei were startled by Shinji's revelation of Yunjian's status. However, Xiangjiai was shocked. It was purely because she had previously mocked Yunjian for being a woman who relied on men to get to where she was and was not worthy of being the young madam of the Anhun organization. But now that she thought about it, Yunjian's wealth was beyond Xiangjiai's imagination. Xiangjiai was really stunned. She stood rooted to the ground, unable to recover from the shock. 100 million USD. If converted to RMB, it would be 600 million. Is this for real? She actually, the last person to shout was Huyiru. Huyiru's eyes widened. She stared at Shinji and asked the question that terrified her. How is this possible? She was just an ordinary girl who only knew how to put on an act every day. She had no ability at all. That's all she was. Huyiru didn't believe it. She stared at Shinji, almost suspecting that Shinji was cooperating with Yunjian to deceive her. Whether it was Huyiru, Xiangjiai, or Mai-chen, they were all high school students in their teens. Usually they would gather together and brag about some powerful person they knew. That was already the limit of what they could do. However, Yunjian was just like them. She was just a teenage girl. How could it be possible that he was such a powerful existence? Everyone present, including Neil and the people who wanted to team up with Yunjian to kill Shinji, were all stunned. Shinji sneered. After laughing, she turned to look at Huyiru and the others, who had been left hanging for a long time. As if she had heard the funniest joke in the world, she sneered. This is the first time I've heard someone say that 006 is an ordinary girl. How interesting. If 006 is ordinary, are there any extraordinary people in this world? Chapter 1746. Looking at Xiang Jiayi and Hu Yiru who had mocked Yun Jian over and over again, Shinji almost burst out laughing. This was the funniest joke she had heard this year, bar none. Slaying God, the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, had been called an ordinary girl by a bunch of ignorant humans who were good at pretending? To be honest, Shinji's starting price for Yun Jian's missions was already considered very low. Take note, this was only the starting price. The starting price was the lowest price. Usually, the price after a deal was completed could double or triple the starting price. However, just hearing this starting price was enough to scare Xiang Jiayi, Hu Yiru, and the others half to death. Shinji had never heard anyone say that Yun Jian was an ordinary person who was good at pretending. Although she had always been enemies with Yun Jian, she could not help but retaliate when she heard Hu Yiru belittle Yun Jian. When she finished speaking, Hu Yiru, Xiang Jiayi, and the others' eyes widened even more. They were so shocked that their faces turned pale. However, Shinji had already turned her gaze back to Yun Jian. She could not help but speak again in front of everyone. Although I'm not convinced, I, Shinji, have always been upright and never talk nonsense. Right now, I can't compare to her. At this point, Shinji's confidence reignited. She looked at Yun Jian and pointed at Yun Jian confidently. She spoke to Yun Jian as if she was challenging her to a fight. But 006, just you wait. One day I'll surpass you in all aspects. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She liked Shinji's unyielding personality. Shinji knew the gap between them and never denied the existence of the gap. However, Shinji had never admitted defeat. She had always maintained her desire to surpass her. Even if the gap between Shinji and Yun Jian's abilities was getting bigger and bigger. Yun Jian understood that the reason she could become stronger was because Shinji had been chasing after her. I'm looking forward to that day. Yun Jian smiled. Yun Jian had indeed come here to help Neil kill the leader of the Soul Devourer. But after seeing that the leader of the Soul Eater organization was Shinji, Yun Jian changed her mind. In the distance, even if Junior was an idiot, he could tell the relationship between Yun Jian and Shinji. Hearing this, Junior wasn't stupid. He naturally knew that it was impossible for him and Yun Jian to kill Shinji. Therefore, Neil turned around and tried to escape. Yun Jian immediately saw through Junior's thoughts. Her eyes darkened, and her red lips curled into a smile as she spoke to Shinji. Your subordinate has just formed an alliance with me. He wants to join forces with me to kill you. He also promised to give me half of the Soul Devourer organization's forces. That's a very attractive offer. Yun Jian didn't say it out loud, but anyone who wasn't stupid could tell that Yun Jian was trying to warn Shinji that the subordinate who had tried to betray him was about to escape. Junior. When Shinji heard this, he was enraged. In a few short seconds, Shinji caught up to Junior, who was trying to escape, and killed him in front of everyone. This method of killing was somewhat similar to Yun Jian's. Even so, Xiang Jiayi, Hu Yiru, and the others were so scared that they didn't dare say another word. Xiang Jiayi, Hu Yiru, and the others had probably spent their entire lives in fear and shock here. After Shinji finished off Junior, Yun Jian turned her head and looked at Shinji. She asked him in French, "You said that someone was buying the puppets. Is the person buying the puppets a mysterious person wearing a black robe?" Yun Jian asked Shinji in French. Naturally, she didn't want Xiang Jiayi, Hu Yiru, and the others to understand her question. As expected, when she said this, Xiang Jiayi, who had just recovered from the shock of seeing Shinji kill Junior, looked at Yun Jian and couldn't help but complain, "What kind of bird language is she blabbering on about? Judging from her accent, she seems to be speaking the most standard French." As soon as Xiang Jiayi spoke, a boy who'd only heard French before widened his eyes in shock. She can speak French. It's not hard to learn a foreign language, but to speak it so fluently, you'd have to learn it from elementary school to adulthood. The boy added. Chapter 1747. Yun Jian did not find it strange that this group of people would make a fuss over something so trivial. At this moment, Shinji, who understood Yun Jian's words, replied to Yun Jian in perfect French. That's right. The person who bought the puppets was indeed a mysterious man in a black robe. Yun Jian's eyes lit up when Shinji finished speaking. It was the mysterious man. Any unusual organization had an inseparable relationship with the mysterious man. The Inferno Ring at the beginning, followed by the Blood Doll, and now the Soul Eater. Yun Jian realized that whether it was the Inferno Ring at the beginning, the Blood Doll, or the Soul Eater now, they all had one thing in common. The mysterious man was using others to do his dirty work. In other words, the mysterious man had never sent his subordinates to attack Yun Jian, the Kosha mercenaries, or the Inhun organization. He had been looking for forces on Earth to deal with Yun Jian and Ce. This was also the reason why Yun Jian and Ce could not find any trace of the mysterious man. Now that they knew that the mysterious man came from a mysterious continent outside of Yulong mainland, it was understandable why Yun Jian and Ce could not find any trace of the mysterious man. Don't sell any more puppets to him in the future, Yun Jian said without saying anything else. Shinji's eyelids twitched when he heard Yun Jian's words and he nodded. Sure. Of course she had to do slaying God a favor. As for the other reasons, Shinji would not ask if Yun Jian did not mention them. The less she knew, the better. Shinji was a smart person, so of course he would not say too much. Not selling any more puppets meant that the kidnapped Su Mei, Maichen, Xiang Jia, and Hu Yiru were useless. In the end they were released. However, before releasing them, Yun Jian made everyone take amnesia liquid for 3 hours before sending them away. As a result, whether it was Su Mei, Maichen, or the rest, their memories stopped at the time they were kidnapped in the truck. He couldn't remember anything that had happened in the last 3 hours, including everything that had happened since he got off the truck. Before Yun Jian left, Shinji asked for an address for Yun Jian. He said that he could challenge her at any time. In the end, Yun Jian and the others were sent back to Loberi's house by Shinji's helicopter. When they arrived at Loberi's house, Yun Jian said that she had been unconscious the whole way. When she woke up, she had fallen unconscious in Loberi's house with everyone else. Naturally, he would not pursue the matter any further. Yun Jian had returned to Longmen City with Luo Berry, Mo Sun, and Su Mei. As soon as they got home, Yun Jian brought Luo Berry to look for Qin Yu, leaving Mo Sun at home. She had nothing to do at home, so she went out for a walk. Yun Jian had just brought Luo Mei to Qin Yu's house when they saw Qin Yu, Gu Nianji, and Leng Mei returning from their stroll. I've decided to get a boyfriend. Let's start again. At this moment, Leng Mei's firm voice was heard. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and went forward with Luo Berry. After the introductions, Luo Berry got to know Qin Yu, Gu Nianji, and Leng Mei quickly. Although Luo Berry was already 18, she looked like she was only 14 or 15. Leng Mei liked Luo Berry quite a lot. Now that they were more familiar with each other, she put an arm around Luo Berry's shoulders and walked out. Leng Mei was sure that her chief, Di Lin, had returned to Blood Doll. He probably gave up on her because he could not find her. Leng Mei had also sent a woman to Di Lin by mail. Yun Jian looked at Leng Mei, feeling like she was starting all over again. Yun Jian watched as Leng Mei put an arm around Luo Berry's shoulders and said boldly, "Let's go, little girl. Jejia will take you to a handsome guy." Mo Sun was not around. Luo Berry blushed at Leng Mei's words. Before Leng Mei could finish, she saw Di Lin coming from behind Leng Mei. Yun Jian, who did not remind Leng Mei of Di Lin's arrival, narrowed her eyes as she watched the fuming Di Lin walk to Leng Mei from behind and grab her wrist, bellowing. Chapter 1748. Yun Jian, who was standing behind Leng Mei, saw Di Lin walking over from afar. She grabbed Leng Mei's hand and called out softly. Yun Jian smirked and gestured to Luo Mei, Qin Yu, and Gu Nianji before turning to walk to Qin Yu's suite. Qin Yu and Gu Nianji exchanged a look when Yun Jian left. They walked over to drag Luo Mei away and gave Leng Mei a "do as you see fit" expression before following Yun Jian upstairs with a smirk. Leng Mei, who had been confident that her Lord Chief would never look for her again, turned her head and saw Di Lin. She was so shocked that she jumped back. F***ck, 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 Lord Chief, why are you here? Leng Mei's wrist was suddenly grabbed and she heard this familiar voice. She didn't react in time. She wanted to curse, but she saw Di Lin's familiar face. Leng Mei stopped in her tracks and took a few steps back, almost tripping. Di Lin grabbed Leng Mei's hand with a dark expression. "Who do you want to F***ck? Di Lin grabbed Leng Mei's hand and spoke with a face that looked like he was about to tear her apart. She just told another girl that she wanted to hit on a handsome guy? Hit on a handsome guy? Who did she want to hit on? Who else did she want to be with other than him? Lord Chief, that. I was just talking nonsense. That last time I just wanted to come out and have some fun. I didn't mean to lie to you. Lung Mei dared not look into Lin's eyes. She was not short, but her height was just above his ear. Because they were very close, Lung Mei could not see his expression clearly. However, just as Lung Mei lowered her head, her eyes darting around as she tried to come up with a series of lies, Lin suddenly put a hand on Lung Mei's waist and pulled her close to him. Lung Mei was stunned. In the next second, a handsome face enlarged in front of her eyes. It was Lin who bent over and kissed her on the lips. Lung Mei was dumbfounded. Her eyes suddenly widened. She was so shocked that she could not use words to describe it. This was the first time Lin took the initiative to kiss her. Lung Mei had always thought that she was just a mistress in Lin's heart, a dispensable tool for him to vent. In the past, it was always Lung Mei who took the initiative to kiss Lin. Lin would never avoid her, but there was no way he would kiss her or kiss her back. That was impossible. Even when they were doing that, she leaned over and kissed him. He never responded to her kisses. This made Lung Mei thought that was only using her as a tool. Therefore, when Lin suddenly bent down and kissed her, Lung Mei was dumbfounded. She stared at Lin's handsome face in shock and didn't come back to her senses for a long time. Lin kissed Lung Mei for a long time but didn't get a response. He was a little angry and reached out his right hand to the back of Lung Mei's head, deepening the kiss. Lung Mei took a few deep breaths. Finally, in broad daylight, just as Lung Mei was about to suffocate from Lin's kiss, Lin let her go. Lung Mei took a few deep breaths. She looked up and met Lin's eyes, planning to tell him her decision. Leader, I'll be frank. I've been with you for so many years. I've always been willing. But after so many years I'm tired. Aren't you tired? Let's end this relationship. I don't want to be your mistress anymore. Just as Lung Mei was about to say everything she wanted to say, Lin's face darkened. He interrupted her and said something that made her dumbfounded. Chapter 1749. I love you, that's why I forced you to be my woman. Lin's first sentence almost gave Lung Mei a heart attack. What did he say? He said he loved her? He did force her to be Lin's woman back then. Lung Mei knew that Lin did not like dirty women, so he found someone he was familiar with, someone who was pure. When Lin asked Lung Mei if she was willing to be his woman, Lung Mei nodded right away. Firstly, it was because Lin's father had saved her and she wanted to repay him. Secondly, Lung Mei liked Lin. However, Lung Mei knew that Lin did not like her when she first started following him. She never thought that he would like her one day. It had been so many years. Sometimes Lung Mei wanted a home of her own. She did not want to be a tool for others to vent their frustrations. Lung Mei was sure that Lin did not love her, so she mustered up the courage to say what she said. She thought that Lin would let her go if she said what she said. However, Lung Mei never thought that Lin would say that he loved her. What surprised Lung Mei even more was, he said that he loved her, that's why he forced her to be his woman back then. Did this mean that he loved her from the beginning? There was too much information in these words, causing Lung Mei to be completely stunned. Lung Mei dared not dream of being loved by the great chief. Looking at Lung Mei's adorable dumbfounded expression, Lin smirked. He grabbed Lung Mei and dragged her away. She dared to hide from him these days. Good. Very good. This trip back would take 10 days and 10 nights, not a day less. In Qing Yu's house, on the sofa in the living room, Yun Jian rested her hands lazily on the sofa, blinking. Even Luo Mei, who was also a woman, could not help but take a few more glances at her beautiful and delicate face. Let's go, let's go. This is too exciting. The two of them kissed just like that at the entrance of the busy neighborhood. I told you guys to come out and take a look, but you guys didn't. You missed a good show. Gu Nianji, who had been peeping at Lin and Lung Mei from the corridor, ran in excitedly when she saw Lin leaving with Lung Mei. Where is he? Yun Jian curled her lips. She pursed her lips and asked indifferently. Gone, already gone, haha. Gu Nianji walked up to Yun Jian and sat down on the sofa beside her. She was secretly happy that Lung Mei had been taken away by Lin. After Gu Nianji sat down, Qing Yu poured a few glasses of orange juice from the kitchen and placed them in front of everyone. Drink, drink, drink. Luo Berry, don't be shy. Just treat this place as your own home. Qing Yu said with a cup of wine in her hand. Luo Berry thanked them and her good impression of Qing Yu and Gu Nianji improved. Taking 2 sips of the orange juice, Yun Jian pressed her lips together and turned to look at Qing Yu, remembering that Adam and Lan Su had returned to Earth from Yulong mainland, so she asked, What's the matter? Lan Su didn't come back? Hearing Yun Jian mention Lan Su, Qin Yu, who felt like she had forgotten something, snapped back to reality. She asked Yun Jian in return, "She went to Min City to look for you. Didn't you guys meet?" Qin Yu did not know that Yun Jian had gone to Luo Berry's house. She thought that Yun Jian was still studying at Min City's military academy. "I haven't been to Min City's military academy recently," Yun Jian said with a press of her lips. Adam did not return to Longmen City. He went back to Hun Group to report to CE that he had returned from Yulong mainland. Adam had gone to Luo Berry's house purely to look for Mo Sen because he had Mo Sen's phone GPS. Adam had gone to look for Mo Sen after sending Lan Su to Qin Yu's house, so he did not know that Lan Su would go to Min City to look for Yun Jian. "Oh God, I gave her your school's address not too long ago. She's probably at your school's entrance now." Qin Yu rubbed her forehead and said helplessly. This was simply a beautiful miss. Besides, she doesn't know how to use a phone, so she didn't buy one. "We can't contact her either," Qin Yu added helplessly. How could he miss out on such a magnificent opportunity? "I'll go to Min City to look for her." Yun Jian retracted her hand from the sofa and stood up to pass Luo Berry to Qin Yu before heading out. Yun Jian had taken leave recently because she was worried that Qin Sini's injury would worsen. Now that Qin Sini's critical period was over, Yun Jian did not have to stay in Longmen City all the time. Chapter 1750. Lan Su dawdled at the entrance of Min City's military academy for almost an hour. When the guard saw that she was really here to look for someone, he had Lan Su sign a name on the registration form for outsiders and let her in. This was because Lan Su was from the Yulong continent. People from the Yulong continent usually lived up to 1,000 years. Ordinary people could live up to 1,000 years. It was not unusual for people like Lan Su to live up to 10,000 years. Cultivators with powerful spiritual power could even achieve immortality. Of course, other than those freaks in the deity continent, cultivators who could achieve immortality were just legends in the Yulong continent. To Lan Su and the others, time was the least valuable thing. Therefore, when the guard did not let her into Min City's military academy to look for Yun Jian, Lan Su had waited at the entrance for a whole hour. Lan Su was not flustered even after an hour of waiting. She had planned to wait for Yun Jian to come to Min City's military academy after class. In the end, the guard could not stand it any longer and let her in. Min City's military academy paid special attention to outsiders because the students in the school were usually the future pillars of the country. Lan Su knew which class Yun Jian was in. Qin Yu had told her before, so Lan Su headed straight to Year 1-2. Just as she reached Year 1-2's classroom, Lan Su stood at the door and looked around. She frowned in suspicion when she did not see Yun Jian. At this moment, a pretty girl walked past Lan Su. She saw that Lan Su had been waiting for quite a while, so she looked at Lan Su and asked, "Classmate, who are you looking for? Do you need me to call that person out for you?" "Year 1-2, it's Yun Jian," Lan Su answered the kind girl. "Yun Jian, she's been?" The girl was about to reply to Lan Su when she was pushed aside by a fierce figure. After the fierce figure pushed the girl away, she pushed her into the classroom and spoke to Lan Su first. "I know where Yun Jian is now. I'm taking leave to go home now. I'll bring you to her. She's not in school." "Thank you," Lan Su thanked her politely. "Are you really Yun Jian's friend?" Looking at Lan Su's innocent and naive demeanor, the owner of the ferocious figure who had bumped into the girl just now was Lin Shuya, who had always been at odds with Yun Jian. Her eyes darted around as she asked Lan Su again in a reassuring tone. "Yes," Lan Su answered simply. Okay. Come with me. I've just taken leave to go home. I'll bring you to Yun Jian now." Lin Shuya scoffed inwardly and led Lan Su out of the school gate. Since Yun Jian was really not in school and Qin Yu said that Yun Jian was in Min City, Lan Su followed her without much thought. 15 minutes later, Lin Shuya brought Lan Su into a smoky bar. Lin Shuya found an excuse to take leave from school so that she could gather with some of the gangsters she knew at the bar. A large group of men and women sat together and chatted about some ambiguous topics. Who knew that she would bump into Yun Jian's friend at the entrance of the class? She looked so innocent. It was really effortless to obtain it. She, Lin Shuya, wanted Yun Jian to know the price of provoking her. Lan Su did not have a deep understanding of Earth, so she did not think too much about it. However, when Lin Shuya brought her into the smoky bar, Lan Su was slightly stunned. Yun Jian was here. Chapter 1751. Lin Shuya couldn't wait to frame Lan Su, so she urged her. When Lan Su heard this, her eyes flashed slightly, but she listened to Lin Shuya's words and walked into the noisy smoky bar. Here. I'm in school. I'm good friends with Yun Jian. She's amazing. Previously, she won first place in the wilderness survival event during military training. Today we agreed to take leave together and come here to play. Lin Shuya was afraid that Lan Su wouldn't believe her, so she instilled in Lan Su that she knew Yun Jian and was good friends with Yun Jian. Lan Su was skeptical, but she didn't say anything. She followed Lin Shuya into the private room of the bar. The bar was very noisy, and the violent sound made people's hearts jump. There were also differences in bars. There was a kind of bar that was more romantic. Generally, there were bartenders in the bar, and the bar would also invite a special band to sing. Another kind of bar was a place for urban men and women to relieve pressure after a busy day of work. This kind of bar was generally a place where men and women got to know each other and talked. Moreover, the rock music was set to be particularly loud. When people stood in the bar, they could feel their hearts and bodies being shaken. Generally, the latter was a more chaotic place. It was also a place where one-night stands or things like being drugged often happened. Lin Shuya brought Lan Su to a more chaotic bar. As soon as he entered the bar, he could smell a strong scent of perfume, or perhaps it was some kind of smell that could make people excited. Lin Shuya brought Lan Su around the noisy bar and came to a private room. As soon as she entered the private room of the bar, the noisy and chaotic sound in the private room made Lan Su frown slightly. In the private room there was a large group of men and women hugging each other. Some men even boldly placed their hands on the women's thighs and stroked them. Lan Su's appearance was outstanding, so as soon as she entered the private room, she immediately attracted the fiery gazes of the men in the private room. Yo, Sister Shuya, this is? Immediately, a few punks came over and looked at Lan Su with malicious eyes. She's a friend of my friend Yun Jian. Brother Jia, where did Yun Jian go? Why don't I see her? Lin Shuya saw that the man in front of her was sizing up Lan Su with his lecherous eyes for a few moments, so she winked at the man called Brother Jia a few times and said. Jia saw at a glance that Lin Shuya was lying to Lan Su. So Jia immediately Lin Shuya's to continue to bluff Lan Su. Sister Yun's sister just went out to buy some water and will be back in a while. Don't worry, it's yours first time coming here, right? Sit on the sofa's teats s's, tea sit. Lan Su didn't refuse. After a while, Jia walked to Lan Su with a glass of juice. He smiled at Lan Su. Sister, I see that it's your first time coming to a bar. Don't drink with them. Drink a glass of juice to quench your thirst. Your friend will be back soon. At this time Lin Shuya, who was sitting next to Lan Su, also said, Jia told you to drink 2 sips, so drink 2 sips. I'm going out to look for Yun Jian. I don't know what she's doing, why hasn't she come back yet? With that, Lin Shuya pretended to leave the hotel's private room. Lan Su put the juice halfway to her mouth and smelled the smell of the drug in the juice, but she didn't expose it and drank it in one gulp. Didn't anyone tell them that she was the same as her family's sorcerer god? They both had a physique that was immune to poison. However, Lan Su still fainted symbolically. Lin Shuya, who was standing outside the private room, saw that Lan Su had fainted so quickly. She quickly walked into the room from outside the private room and stopped pretending. She directly tore off her hypocritical mask, pointed at Lan Su and said to the men in the room, I'll give you a gift. Turn the sound in our private room to the maximum. You can do whatever you want with this woman. Just don't kill her. I'll guard outside for you. Hurry up. As soon as Lin Shuya finished speaking, a man immediately pulled off his belt with a cheer. The sound in the private room was very loud. It wasn't the first time this group of men had done something like letting a large group of men take turns with a young girl. Lin Shuya was even more confident that she could destroy Yun Jian's friend, Lan Su. This is beautiful. TSK brothers, last time those women were all first. This time I have to go first. As Brother Jia spoke, he took off his pants without any shame, leaving only a pair of pure black underwear. With a wretched smile on his face, he walked towards the unconscious Lan Su. The people around all cheered with an "oh," all of them treating it as if they were watching a show. However, just as Brother Jia was about to reach Lan Su and was 3 meters away from Lan Su, the door of the private room was suddenly kicked open. Lin Shuya, who hadn't walked out of the door yet, was so scared that she took 2 steps back. Outside the door, a petite but slender young girl stopped and entered. When they saw the young girl who suddenly entered, the eyes of the people around them lit up. This young girl was so beautiful. But before the people present could exclaim, they saw Yun Jian, who had just entered the room, coldly looking at the scene. She saw Brother Jia walk towards the unconscious Lan Su and didn't even raise his eyes before a knife flew out. The knife followed the trajectory and accurately stabbed Brother Jia, who was only wearing a pair of underwear. The knife chopped off Brother Jia's manhood on the spot in front of everyone. Seeing this, the faces of the people who were still laughing just now were instantly frightened to the extreme. She actually, before they could think much, they heard a voice that was even more sinister and cold than the azure of hell. Chapter 1752. Yin Jian was furious. Lan Su was not only her protector in her previous life, but also her friend. In her previous life as the witch god, Lan Su had accompanied her for thousands of years. This kind of feeling was indescribable. At this moment, the knife that she threw out directly chopped off Brother Jia's genitals, causing Brother Jia to roll on the ground in pain. She opened her 5 fingers, and 2 shiny butterfly knives were held between her hands. Yun Jian slowly walked into the private room. With every step she took, everyone present felt their cells tremble violently. She just threw out a flying knife, and that knife seemed to be held in the hands of the Grim Reaper. With a flying knife, it was so accurate that everyone present felt that it was inconceivable, and one knife crippled Brother Jia's genitals. This kind of terrifying skill should not appear on a teenage girl at all. But this girl who suddenly appeared at the door of the private room did it. Just when everyone was panicking about the background of this girl who suddenly appeared, Lin Shuya, who was not far from Yun Jian, pointed her finger slightly at Yun Jian. She was so scared that her face turned pale and she screamed on the spot. Yun Jian. You. Why are you here? Lin Shuya had seen Yun Jian's methods. This time she dared to do this because she was sure that Yun Jian was not in Min City. Lin Shuya had just said this, and before she could finish speaking, Yun Jian kicked Lin Shuya's abdomen in front of everyone in the private room, and immediately kicked Lin Shuya to the ground. Her figure followed closely, and the butterfly knife in her right hand swung left and right. She nimbly and accurately placed the blade of the knife on Lin Shuya's neck, who was kicked to the ground. This process was completed in 2 breaths, but it frightened the group of girls standing around, as well as the gangsters who were like Brother Jia in the society. These gangsters were usually very powerful, and they often liked to bring their girlfriends or female friends out to places like bars or nightclubs to play. Usually when a large group of people played together, they always liked to brag about things that they thought were very proud and arrogant, and then get a large group of girls to worship them in order to show their holiness. Usually such hooligans would form gangs. However, no matter how arrogant and powerful they were, they had never seen a girl as powerful as Yun Jian. As a result, this large group of hooligans all opened their mouths wide and stood in place with an expression of disbelief. Looking at Yun Jian, they could no longer speak. After Yun Jian kicked Lin Shuya to the ground, she placed the butterfly knife on Lin Shuya's neck. The sneer on her face made everyone's hair stand on end. I'll send you to hell, okay? Yun Jian, we are classmates. Put the knife down. Let's talk nicely. Everything that happened just now was just a misunderstanding. Lin Shuya's eyes widened in fright as she tried to find an excuse. As soon as Lin Shuya said this, Yun Jian pushed the butterfly knife in her hand towards Lin Shuya's neck. That burning pain instantly spread throughout Lin Shuya's body. Lin Shuya screamed as blood flowed out. She didn't dare to move anymore. However, they heard Yun Jian's lazy voice again, but the words weren't directed at Lin Shuya. Why aren't you getting up? Yun Jian directly ignored Lin Shuya. Everyone was shocked. Why aren't you getting up? Just as they thought this, they saw Lan Su, who was pretending to be unconscious, turn over and get up from the sofa. When everyone saw this, they were dumbfounded. Wasn't she already unconscious? How did she wake up again? And more importantly, Yun Jian could actually see that Lan Su was pretending to be unconscious. Lan Su had just deceived everyone present. Everyone couldn't help but wonder who Yun Jian was that Lin Shuya provoked. This person was too scary. Lan Su rubbed her nose and parted her lips slightly before she walked to Yun Jian in front of everyone and nodded at her, saying, Yun Jian, you're the one who's going to make a mistake. Chapter 1753. As soon as Lan Su's words fell, the group of delinquents standing around, including Lin Shuya and the others, all froze. What clan leader? What master? How come they couldn't understand what Lan Su was saying at all? But even if they couldn't understand, this group of delinquents didn't dare to make a sound. They had just seen Lan Su drink that cup of juice with the knockout drug. Lan Su had indeed fainted, and now he woke up as if nothing had happened. This could only mean one thing. The knockout drug had no effect on Lan Su at all. And Brother Jia, who had wanted to be the first to make a move on Lan Su, had now been turned from a man to a woman by Yun Jian. How could they dare to say anything more? Did they not want their lifeblood anymore? This group of delinquents who used to be extremely cocky, were now all cowering in the corner, not even daring to say a single word. After hearing Lan Su's words, Yun Jian simply kicked Lin Shuya away, sheathed her knife and turned to look at Lan Su. Where is he? Yun Jian asked. In her previous life, the old man who taught her hypnotism and all kinds of skills was her master. If it wasn't for him, she might have already died in her previous life. Let's talk outside. Lan Su glanced at the people around and spoke to Yun Jian. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. But before leaving, Yun Jian did something very interesting. 30 minutes later, the bar's room attendant came to the room. When she opened the door to the room and saw the scene inside, she was so shocked that she covered her face and screamed. She saw that the large group of men and women in the room had all fainted, but the only thing that could be seen was that the large group of men and women were hugging each other in pairs, their clothes disheveled as if they were doing something unspeakable. In the end, Lin Shuya and the group were all taken away by the police for group prostitution. Of course, what happened next had nothing to do with Yun Jian. After Yun Jian and Lan Su left the bar, they came to an empty corner. Sorcerer God, we don't know your master's whereabouts at the moment, but the clan leader found out that a martial arts family on Earth had helped your master before. Before your master left, he left a letter for the master of the martial arts family. That letter contained a detailed way to contact your master, saying that it was to repay the kindness of this family head. It's just that the head of the martial arts family is rather stubborn. The patriarch has already sent people 3 times to exchange various treasures for the letter, but they still couldn't get the letter. Lan Su conveyed what Wu Lan, the tribe leader of the Wu tribe, wanted to tell Yun Jian. Yun Jian's eyes flickered. Where is that warrior family? Yun Jian pursed her lips and asked. Sorcerer God, are you going there personally? Lan Su asked. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. It's in a small ravine in the north of Dongdong province. It's very far from Longmen City, answered Lan Su. Pack up. We'll depart in 3 days. It was Friday 3 days later. They would depart on a holiday. Yun Jian's lips curved as she spoke faintly. Okay. Lan Su nodded obediently. After the announcement, Lan Su returned to Longmen City while Luo Mei stayed at Qing Yu's house. Chen Sini's injuries were almost healed, so Yun Jian went back to Min City's military academy. Lin Wan and Mu Ying stayed with Yun Jian for half a day in Min City's military academy. When the physical education class ended in the afternoon, the physical education teacher announced that the students were free to do whatever they wanted. Yun Jian, Lin Wan and Mu Ying sat on a lawn nearby, looking at the blue sky leisurely. Yun Jian, let's go shopping after school on Friday. There's a new mall in Min City recently. The clothes there are really pretty. Lin Wan suggested. I have something on this weekend. Yun Jian declined. Alright, we'll go next week then. Lin Wan knew Yun Jian well. She would not press for the reason even if Yun Jian said that she could not go. Yun Jian nodded. Just as the physical education teacher returned to his office and Yun Jian's classmates were free to do whatever they wanted, a middle-aged man walked over from afar. The middle-aged man left in a hurry, attracting the attention of many people around him. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes as she watched the unfamiliar man walk up to her. When the middle-aged man came to Yun Jian, he knelt down in front of her in front of all the students in the field and shouted, I'm sorry, Yun Jian. Please save my young master. Save my young master. I beg you. When the surrounding students saw this, they were all stunned for a moment. What was wrong with this man? Why was he kneeling before Yun Jian and begging Yun Jian to save his life? Yun Jian was Team Monarch slashing God, but she was only good at it. Was it not the doctor's job to save lives? Uncle, are you looking for the wrong person? Saving people is a doctor's job. Lin Wan replied in front of the other students after she heard that. However, before Lin Wan could finish her sentence, the middle-aged man shook his head and looked at Yun Jian. No. There's no mistake, it's her. She's the legendary hand of death who can bring the dead back to life. With that, the middle-aged man looked straight into Yun Jian's eyes and said urgently to Yun Jian in front of everyone. Chapter 1754. The middle-aged man's pleading posture was eye-catching. Especially when he had come to the school to beg for help. Yun Jian's class was not the only class that was having PE class. There were a few classes around them that were having PE classes as well. The middle-aged man's cry for help and what he said earlier echoed clearly throughout the classroom, shocking many who were there. Especially when the middle-aged man said the last sentence. He actually said, Yun Jian was the hand of death in the medical field? She even revived a girl who was declared dead in Longmen City's People's Hospital. What kind of joke was this? There were a few girls in Yun Jian's class who were closer to Lin Shuya, so they burst into laughter when they heard what the middle-aged man said. The hand of death in the medical field? You don't say. I really do pay attention to the medical world. The hand of death is known as the king of the medical field. I heard that she can even revive a person whose heart and brain were declared dead. She's the most amazing medical genius in the world today. She's the real reincarnation of Hua Tuo. But how can such an amazing person be Yun Jian? Even if she's dead, she can't be Yun Jian. And if Yun Jian is so amazing, why didn't she choose military medicine when she applied for military school? A girl who looked decent standing not far away from Yun Jian was Yun Jian's classmate and Lin Shuya's friend. As the girl spoke, she mocked Yun Jian in an indirect manner. She thought she was amazing because she majored in military medicine, unlike Yun Jian who did not know anything about medicine and trained her skills with the guys all day long. Once the girl spoke, many people around them chimed in agreement. Yun Jian's ability was already so outstanding. Could she be the hand of death? The middle-aged man insisted on his opinion after listening to the people around him. No. She must be the hand of death. As he spoke, the middle-aged man looked at Yun Jian and said to Yun Jian, "There's a recording of the operation you performed in Longmen City's People's Hospital the last time. You saved a dead man. As long as you save our young master, our old master will give you a reward of 50 million. The middle-aged man's surname was Zhua, and he was the housekeeper of the young master and old master's house. Steward Zhua had watched his young master grow up. Just now his young master had gotten into a car accident. The hospital had concluded that he could not be saved and could only wait for death. Coincidentally, the doctor at the hospital said that only the hands of the medical world's Grim Reaper could save her. The doctor also said that Death's hand was last seen in Longmen City People's Hospital. Steward Zhua's family was powerful and influential. He managed to find out Yun Jian's current identity with just a few phone calls and even found the surveillance footage of Longmen City's People's Hospital's surgery scene. As soon as he got the address, Steward Zhua immediately rushed over to beg Yun Jian for help. A reward of 50 million. 50 million. In this day and age of 1999, 50 million was an astronomical figure. It was equivalent to a few billion in modern times. Therefore, when they heard Steward Zhua's words, the surrounding students were dumbfounded. Even the girl who was certain that Yun Jian was not the hand of death was completely dumbfounded. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian would agree to Steward Zhua's request regardless of whether she was the hand of death or not, a cold smile appeared on Yun Jian's face. From afar, Yun Jian smirked and looked at Steward Zhua with a cold smirk. She said faintly, "Since when did the fee for me to save someone become so low?" When Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone was stunned. Yun Jian's words meant, could it be that she was the one in the legends? Before they could ponder further, Yun Jian's words were heard again. She was speaking to Steward Zhua. Chapter 1755. Yun Jian's words entered everyone's ears and they were all shocked. Yun Jian's words were an admission of her identity, and she was also telling Steward Zhua about it. She wouldn't save people. As the hand of death in the medical world, Yun Jian rarely saved people. Although she was the hand of death in the medical world, not everyone could be saved. It wasn't easy being a doctor. Not to mention her as the hand of death. Even if an ordinary doctor had excellent medical skills, was very strong, and could perform every operation smoothly, if he failed one day, people would completely lose confidence in him. There was no time when people didn't make mistakes, and there was also no time when they didn't make any mistakes. This was true. However, in the medical world, to the common people and to the general public, no one would use this to understand doctors. How could there be any mistakes when a person's life was gone? Even an ordinary doctor would be despised because of a careless mistake, let alone her, who was at the top of the medical world. Yun Jian wasn't a god, so naturally she couldn't save people from the dead every time. In the past, Yun Jian relied on her hands to save people. Now that she had recovered her spiritual power, it was unrealistic for her to use her spiritual power to save people every time. On Earth, every time she used her spiritual power to save someone, she would have to bear the punishment of not making any progress in her cultivation for 10 years. Every time she used her spiritual power, it would be stacked. After saving Qin Sini last time, Yun Jian's cultivation had been stagnant for 10 years. Naturally, she couldn't easily save people again. Yun Jian's words were all true, but to the students around Yun Jian, it was abrupt and shocking. Yun Jian's words didn't mean that she was admitting that she was the hand of death. You're the hand of death? You're really the hand of death? You must be joking. The girl who mocked Yun Jian earlier glared at Yun Jian, her face pale with fright. Muing wasn't surprised at all. She knew that Yunjian was slaying God, so she knew that all these identities meant nothing to Yunjian. Steward Zhuo's expression changed slightly after hearing Yunjian's words. He wasn't surprised that Yunjian would reject him. In front of everyone, Steward Zhuo fished out a black envelope from his pocket and passed it to Yunjian. "This is a letter that my master wrote to you. He said that he wants you to read this letter before making a decision." Yunjian was sitting lazily on the lawn, her arms resting on both sides of her body, her eyes narrowed. Seeing Steward Zhuo pass a letter to her, she accepted it and quickly opened the envelope to skim through its contents. After reading the letter, Yunjian tore it into pieces in front of everyone. Then she stood up and said to Steward Zhuo, "Let's go." Steward Zhuo was skeptical at first. Chapter 1757. Steward Zhuo had no time to explain to these people blocking the way. If he continued to explain, would his young master still have a chance to live? So Steward Zhuo finished speaking and pushed away the group of people in front of him, intending to lead Yunjian to the hospital's operating room first. Hua Wenru, the girl just now, really thought that Yunjian was young master Xin Shaoqing's girlfriend, especially Hua Wenru. When she scolded Yunjian just now, anyone with a discerning eye would know that she was scolding Yunjian for being vain. As for the other girl who scolded Yunjian, it was purely because of Hua Wenru's words that made her run away. That girl was Xin Shaoqing's biological sister, named Xin Bai. Xin Bai listened to Hua Wenru's words and really thought that Yunjian was Xin Shaoqing's girlfriend, so she scolded Yunjian. Her brother Xin Shaoqing had an accident for some time. If Yunjian was really her brother's girlfriend, where was she when her brother had an accident? Why didn't she come to see her brother? But after listening to Steward Zhuo's words, Xin Bai was slightly stunned. Yunjian was actually the legendary hand of death in the medical world. After recovering from her shock, Xin Bai softly apologized to Yunjian. "I'm sorry, I just mistakenly thought that you were my brother's girlfriend." Xin Bai was still considered a good girl. She was so emotional just now because her brother Xin Shaoqing had such an accident these few days, so it was inevitable that she would be emotional. But Hua Wenru was different. She couldn't wait for Steward Zhuo to fail to invite the hand of death and for Xin Shaoqing to die. When she saw Steward Zhuo bring Yunjian over, Hua Wenru was already certain that Yunjian was definitely not the hand of death, so she just spoke up to find a reason to suppress Yunjian. But Hua Wenru never thought that Yunjian was really the hand of death in the medical world. This can't be true? How old is she? She's about the same age as Xin Shaoqing and Xin Bai. How could she be the famous hand of death in the medical world? The hand of the Grim Reaper that could bring back the dead. Stop right there. Hua Wenru rolled her eyes and shouted at Steward Zhuo, who was about to bring Yunjian to the rescue. "Steward Zhuo, even if you can't get the Grim Reaper's hand to help you, you shouldn't get a little girl to make up the numbers, right? This is related to young master's life." On the surface, Hua Wenru looked like she was always thinking for Xin Shaoqing, but in fact she just wanted to stall for time. He didn't believe that Yunjian was the hand of death. This was one of the reasons. More importantly, what if Yunjian really was the hand of death and saved Xin Shaoqing? Hua Wenru did not give birth to a son or a daughter for the Xin family. She only hoped that after Xin Shaoqing died, she could give birth to a son to inherit the Xin family's business. "Madam, it can't be wrong. She was the hand of death." Steward Zhuo still couldn't tell that Hua Wenru was stalling for time. He wanted to continue explaining to Hua Wenru, but when he turned his head, he saw that Yunjian had already walked to the operating room. "My time is limited. If you continue to stall for time, you'll have to give me half of the Xin family's fortune in exchange for saving your young master." Yunjian walked forward with her hands in her trouser pockets and said calmly and leisurely. In the end, Yunjian added, "I believe that compared to a son, it's only half of the family's fortune. Your old master will give you that." After she finished speaking, Yunjian's lips curved into a cold arc. These two sentences were completely directed at Hua Wenru. If you continue to stall for time, you might even lose half of the family's fortune in the fight for inheritance. After hearing Yunjian's words, Hua Wenru was really angry and annoyed. However, she really didn't say anything else. Instead, she looked at Yunjian's receding figure and clenched her fists angrily. Yunjian followed Steward Zhuo all the way to the door of the operating room. At the door of the operating room stood a man in his 50s. Half of his hair was already white. The moment he saw Steward Zhuo and Yunjian, the man hurried forward to welcome them. "Great sorcerer goddess." The man walked over and was about to kneel before Yunjian in the same way that commoners in Yulong mainland would greet the great sorcerer goddess. Yunjian's eyes flashed slightly. She replied calmly, "I'm here. There's no need to greet me." Chapter 1758. After Shen Wei heard Yun Jian's words, he did not insist on bowing. After all, this was a hospital and there were many people coming and going. If he, a man in his 50s, publicly knelt before Yun Jian, a teenage girl, the people around him would probably think that he was crazy. Yes, Shen Wei was from the Yulong continent. Of course, simply because Shen Wei was from the Yulong continent, it naturally did not affect Yun Jian's desire to save him. What really affected Yun Jian's desire to save him was, "Do you really have a way to restore all my memories from my past life?" Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and looked at Shen Wei with an extremely cold expression. "Yes. But to help you restore all your memories of the sorcerer god, I have to pay a high price, so I hope that you can help me with one more thing after you save my son," Shen Wei said to Yun Jian. Steward Zhuo was also from the Yulong continent, so there was no need to avoid talking about this in front of him. "What is it?" Yun Jian pursed her lips and said, "Can you be my personal bodyguard and protect my daughter, Shen Bai, for a month? My son, Shen Xiaoqing, didn't become like this because of a car accident, it was caused by someone. I'm afraid that person will harm my daughter again." Shen Wei thought of this and frowned as he spoke to Yun Jian. "I know this is a difficult task, but you are the sorcerer god, how can you protect people like us who have no status in the Yulong continent?" Shen Wei thought that he had put Yun Jian in a difficult position, and even he himself felt that he was asking too much of Yun Jian. Just as he was about to say something else, Yun Jian interrupted him. "Deal. Protect Shen Wei's daughter for a month, save Shen Xiaoqing and get all her memories from her past life." This was a very good deal. Last time when she was absorbing the memories transmitted from the sandalwood box, she was interrupted halfway, and Yun Jian only remembered part of it. She always felt that she had forgotten something important. Moreover, she should be able to find traces of the mysterious person from her past life's memories. At this moment, Si was not here. If Si was here, he would definitely stop Yun Jian from recovering her memories. In his previous life, Si had sacrificed too much for Yun Jian. He didn't want Yun Jian to know because he didn't want her to feel apologetic towards him. He would rather she never recover her memory than remember that she once went to settle accounts with the mysterious man. Because he was there for her. He would take back everything that he owed her. Shen Wei had already prepared everything for the surgery because he had expected Yun Jian to come. When Yun Jian arrived, Shen Wei and Yun Jian exchanged a few words before Yun Jian entered the operating room. 2 hours later, Yun Jian removed the surgical tools and walked out of the operating room. "How is it?" Hua Wenru, who was standing at the entrance, was the first to rush over and ask. Outsiders thought that Hua Wenru was worried about Shen Xiaoqing's life. That was right, Hua Wenru was worried about Shen Xiaoqing's life. However, she was only worried about whether Shen Xiaoqing was dead or alive. Yun Jian ignored Hua Wenru. She turned to look at Shen Wei and said, "Your son will wake up in 3 hours." Although Shen Wei already knew that this would be the result, he still heaved a deep sigh of relief after hearing Yun Jian's words. "Master, it's good that Xiaoqing is fine." "It's good that he's fine?" Hua Wenru stood beside Shen Wei and pretended to be relieved. However, she turned her head and glared at Yun Jian fiercely. This little bitch actually saved Shen Xiaoqing. His life is no longer in danger. I have to go back and do something. I'll come back a day later as scheduled, Yun Jian said to Shen Wei. She had been Shen Bai's bodyguard for a month. During this month, she had to ask for leave from the school and explain to Qin Yiru that she could disappear for a month for no reason. Moreover, she had to explain the reason to Si. Otherwise, he would come looking for her. In fact, even if Yun Jian didn't say anything, Si would still come looking for her no matter where she went. For some reason, Yun Jian felt that Si didn't want her to remember her past life. Therefore, Yun Jian didn't tell Si the details. Chapter 1759. Yun Jian returned to Longmen City after that. First, she contacted Lan Su to postpone her trip to Dongdong province to ask for an envelope containing her master's contact number from the head of the martial arts family for a month. She then went back to settle Luo Mei down and explained to Qin Yiru before returning to Min City's military academy to apply for a month's leave. Yun Jian's ability was outstanding, so it was not difficult for her to apply for a month's leave in school. Qin Yiru was aware of her identity now. Before she left, Qin Yiru reminded her to be careful of her own safety and to remember one thing no matter what danger she encountered. Don't treat your life as a joke. It's not scary to lose anything because you still have us. Hearing Qin Yiru's words, Yun Jian's heart warmed. A day later, Yun Jian arrived at the Shen residence as scheduled. The Shen family's villa was similar to Gu Yunjian's. The style was grander and classy, so it was presentable. By then, Yun Jian had already entered the Shen family's house. When Shen Wei saw Yun Jian, he gave her a small bow and brought Yun Jian to the study to discuss business. Hua Wenru clenched her fists tightly when she saw this. This little slut, she couldn't be thinking of seducing his master, right? In the study. Yun Jian sat in front of the desk in the study while Shen Wei stood beside her, looking at her submissively with his head lowered. If an outsider were to see this, they would be scared to death. Shen Wei was a prominent figure in the southern part of the province. For such a prominent figure to be so respectful to a teenage girl, would it not be frightening? Yun Jian played with the black pen in her hand as she listened to Shen Wei introduce the Shen family's current situation to her lazily. I, Shen Wei, was originally the pride of an aristocratic family in the Yulong continent. Although my Shen family is not even a 10,000th of the sorcerer tribe, it's still not bad. I, Shen Wei, was originally the heir of the Shen family, but I was framed and chased out of the Yulong continent. Shen Wei was originally the heir of the Shen family in the Yulong continent. After being framed, he was chased out of the Yulong continent. As he had nowhere to go, he left the Yulong continent with steward Zhua, who was willing to follow him and came to Earth. Then she met Shen Xiaoqing and Shen Bai's biological mother, so she settled down on Earth. Shen Xiaoqing and Shen Bai's mother died early due to illness. For the sake of their children, Shen Wei had no choice but to remarry. In the blink of an eye, 20 years had passed. Shen Wei realized that he was not the only one from the Yulong continent. In the southern part of the province, there were many people from the aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. Not only did these people form cliques, but they also severely suppressed the aristocratic families who did not join them. Chapter 1760. The sorcerer goddess was not only the supreme existence that the people of Yulong mainland worshipped and revered, she was also the symbol of Yulong mainland. The symbol of an eternal and undefeated existence. With the sorcerer goddess, the sorcerer race would definitely prosper. With the sorcerer goddess in Yulong mainland, other than the god's mainland in the vast universe, no other mainland could be compared to Yulong mainland. This was the value of the sorcerer goddess's existence. She was a god. She was the symbol of Yulong mainland. In Yulong mainland, if the sorcerer goddess appeared in front of the aristocratic families of Yulong mainland, it would be like a bolt from the blue to those aristocratic families. Even Shen Wei was dazed for a moment when he first saw Yun Jian. He had really seen the godlike existence that he had never been able to touch in the Shen family of Yulong mainland. The sorcerer goddess never went back on her words. With the sorcerer goddess around, those aristocratic families who had always done bad things were done for. Shen Wei heaved a sigh of relief. The Shen family was influential, so it was not difficult for them to transfer Yun Jian to Meteor Academy for Nobles midway through her studies. Dad, do you want Sister Grim Reaper to go to school with me? Early in the morning, Shen Bai blinked and asked Shen Wei when she saw Yun Jian standing in front of her with a shoulder bag. Shen Bai was 15 years old this year. Because of her excellent grades, she was smart and eager to learn, so she had skipped 2 grades. She was now in her second year of high school in Meteor Academy. Meteor Academy was a joint school between middle school and high school, but Meteor Academy was an aristocratic academy. Here you could only enter if you had money. Furthermore, the teachers and the environment of Meteor Academy were all top-notch. Shen Bai was actually quite adorable. Aside from the fact that she was misled by Hua Wenru when she first saw Yun Jian and said some unpleasant things to her, Shen Bai was actually quite adorable. However, Shen Bai had also apologized. Ever since Yun Jian saved her brother, Shen Bai had been calling Yun Jian's sister Grim Reaper. Yun Jian did not have any objections and smiled faintly at Shen Bai. Don't tell others that sister is the hand of Grim Reaper. This will bring trouble to big sister. Shen Wei shouted at Shen Bai. Dad, I got it. Shen Bai stuck her tongue out at Shen Wei and then walked over to Yun Jian. Halfway through she turned around and glanced at Shen Wei. Dad, take good care of big brother. We'll be leaving first. Watch the road. Slow down. Shen Wei looked at his daughter Shen Bai's departing figure with heartache. He smiled kindly and said, her home wasn't close to the school but it wasn't far either. However, Shen Bai never took a private car. She was very independent and always ran to school while exercising. Yun Jian appreciated this. Chapter 1761. Because of Yun Jian's move, the classroom was in an uproar. However, after the rich boy finished speaking, a boy immediately became unhappy and retorted, it's just a coincidence. It's just like playing basketball. If you're lucky, a girl can also score 10 goals in a row. The boy who said this was naturally envious of Yun Jian's move just now. He felt that Yun Jian's move just now should not have appeared on a girl. If he could have Yun Jian's move just now and perform it in front of everyone, especially those gullible girls, wouldn't he be able to receive exclamations? It was a pity that the girls were not in the classroom right now. These two girls were all attracted by the three school hunks of Meteor Aristocrat Academy who had just entered the school gate. Yunjian followed behind Xunbai. She looked at Xunbai as if she had won $1 million. She was so excited that it was as if she had seen a mountain of Grandpa Mao and rushed towards the field. While Xunbai was running, Yunjian was strolling in that direction. Although Yunjian's footsteps were slow, her pace was not slow. She could still catch up to Xunbai's pace. The crowd on the field was already in an uproar. Most of the people on the field were girls. One by one they were screaming as if the rain from the sky was Grandpa Mao. However, in the distance, a boy wearing sunglasses and two other boys wearing branded clothes got out of three luxurious sports cars. It was not hard to tell that these three people were the targets of this group of people's screams. Xunbai stopped running when she was 20 meters away from the crowd. She jumped to a place where she could stand very high and see further. She looked at the one wearing sunglasses among the three boys. Yunjian simply sat beside Xunbai with a lazy look on her face. After about 10 minutes, the three boys were surrounded by a group of girls as they walked over. However, they passed by this place. Because Xunbai was standing very high among the three boys, the gentler-looking boy turned his head to look at Xunbai. However, Xunbai did not look at this gentle-looking boy. Her eyes were fixed on the boy in sunglasses in the distance who was called Young Master Lung. This pretty good-looking boy with sunglasses and a cold face was called Lung Yichen. He was one of the three school hunks of the Meteor Aristocratic Academy. He was handsome and cold and was the future target of many girls. As for the other two, they were also one of the three school hunks of the Meteor Aristocrat Academy. The gentle and elegant boy was called Song Zilin, and the sloppy boy was called Gong Shangjin. The family backgrounds of the three of them were among the best in the entire Z nation. At this moment, the three boys were surrounded by a large group of girls. When they passed by Yunjian and Xunbai who was standing at a high place, Xunbai screamed at the boy wearing sunglasses. Cold? Before her voice fell, Yunjian's eyes suddenly flashed sharply. In the next second, she saw a young girl in the distance holding a water sprayer, spraying water in the direction of Yunjian and Xunbai. It was obvious that she did it on purpose. Yunjian's eyes flashed slightly, and in the next second she suddenly flew up. Because there were girls surrounding the three boys, Yunjian and Xunbai's location was very empty. Therefore, Yunjian's action of flying up was very attractive. This time, not only did the girls chasing the three school hunks see this scene, even the three school hunks saw it. They saw Yunjian fly over Xunbai who was standing at a high place. In a short 3 seconds, she turned around and brought Xunbai to a place less than 10 meters away from the sprayer. Chapter 1762. Because Yunjian's actions were too eye-catching, the surrounding people all looked over. The three school hunks also noticed Yunjian. However, they saw Yun Jian standing more than 10 meters away and scathed. She brought Shunbai along and nimbly avoided the spray of the water spray. Yun Jian's slender and perfect figure was also presented in front of everyone. Seeing his brother Leng Yichen stop and look at Yun Jian, Song Zilin raised his eyebrows. It was rare for his brother Leng Yichen to stop and look at a young girl. "Chin, why aren't you moving?" Song Zilin asked. After Yun Jian, who was standing in the distance, pulled Shunbai away from the spray of the water spray, Shunbai reacted and said angrily, "It's Lin Chui. It's not the first time she's done this to me." After saying that, Shunbai pointed at the place where the water spray came from and said hatefully, "Lin Chui, you're shameless. I don't have any grudges with you. Why do you have to go against me every time?" Seeing that Shunbai had noticed her, Lin Chui, who was hiding in the dark, walked out. "Ah, it's our school's beauty. It's not the first time she's done this to Shunbai in public. That's right. I think our school's beauty can't stand girls being nice to young Master Leng. I won't dare to like young Master Leng in the future. If the school's beauty goes against me, then I'm done for." Countless female exclamations immediately sounded from the surroundings. Lin Chui was the school beauty of Meteor Aristocratic Academy. She was beautiful and came from a rich family. Usually, if a girl dared to pursue Leng Yichen, Lin Chui would definitely make that girl unable to survive in the academy. The person who sprayed Yun Jian and Shunbai with the water spray was Lin Chui's little follower. After Lin Chui walked over, she glanced coldly at Yun Jian and Shunbai. Then she turned her head and said to Shunbai, "With a small aristocratic family like your Shun family, you actually dare to have designs on young Master Leng. Do you not want to survive in the academy anymore?" Many of the young masters and young ladies of the Meteor Aristocratic Academy were descendants of aristocratic families from the Yulong continent. In the academy, these young masters and ladies from the aristocratic families of the Yulong continent had never even been to the Yulong continent. They had only heard about the Yulong continent from their elders. There was also the legend of the sorcerer god, the supreme existence of the Yulong continent. Here, the clans of the Yulong continent were generally referred to as aristocratic families. Not only were Lin Chui's elders from Yulong mainland, but even the elders of the three school hunks were from Yulong mainland. In fact, many people in the academy knew about the legend of the Yulong continent. However, it was just a legend. The elders of these young masters and ladies came from the Yulong continent, but that was hundreds or thousands of years ago. As for whether the Yulong continent really existed or how to return to the Yulong continent, these people had no idea at all. Therefore, the Meteor Aristocrat Academy had formed a style. That was, in this place, those who were young ladies or young masters of aristocratic families had a higher status. Leng Yichen, Song Zilin and Gong Shangjin, the three school hunks, had the highest status in their families. Therefore, in the Meteor Aristocratic Academy, their status was also the highest. Next was Lin Chui's family. Yun Jian had also heard about these things from Shunwei. She did not expect that there would be so many aristocratic families from the Yulong continent. Hundreds or thousands of years ago, after the entrance to the human world from the Yulong continent was opened, they migrated to Earth. Yun Jian sneered. Lin Chui scolded Shunbai. Shunbai was afraid that the Lin family would implicate the Shun family, so she really did not say anything. Seeing this, Leng Yichen wanted to turn and leave. She was just a descendant of a small aristocratic family. However, at the moment when Leng Yichen and the other two were about to leave, they saw Lin Chui on the other side seeing how beautiful Yun Jian was. She was actually prettier than herself, and jealousy grew in her heart. "Which aristocratic family are you from?" Lin Chui looked askance at Yun Jian and asked disdainfully. She guessed that Yun Jian was just a young lady from an unknown aristocratic family, or perhaps she was not from an aristocratic family at all. Lin Chui thought confidently. "Do you really want to know who I am?" Yun Jian sneered back. This crisp and pleasant voice made Leng Yichen and the other two who were about to leave stop in their tracks and look curiously at Yun Jian. Of course. Lin Chui was waiting to see Yun Jian make a fool of herself, so she hurriedly spoke up. However, they saw that Yun Jian, who was standing in front of everyone, in front of all the girls around her, including the three school hunks, Leng Yichen, Lin Chui, Shunbai, and everyone else, stopped smiling. Her expression was indifferent, like a revered king, and she said indifferently, "Listen, I will only answer the question of who I am once." Chapter 1763. I am the daughter of the Wu clan of the Yulong continent, the witch goddess who has been in charge of the survival of the Yulong continent for generations. This sentence spread around the field of the Meteor Aristocrat Academy. Yun Jian stood where she was, her cold eyes sweeping across the crowd. Her slender figure stood upright in front of everyone, as if she was a god who held the power to kill. This sentence also spread to the ears of everyone present. It also spread to the ears of Leng Yichen, Song Zilin, Gong Shangjin, as well as the campus belle Lin Qiui, who was standing in front of Yun Jian. It stirred up the fiery hearts of this group of people, causing everyone present to be flabbergasted. What did you say? You are the daughter of the Wu clan of the Yulong continent, the witch goddess? The legendary sorcerer god. Lin Qiui had the biggest reaction when she heard Yun Jian's words. She covered her mouth on the spot and screamed. Leng Yichen, who was looking at Yun Jian with a calm expression, as if he was watching an interesting show, also took off the sunglasses he had been wearing on his face in shock. Song Zilin's handsome face also revealed a look of horror. Gong Shangjin immediately put away his sloppy look and became serious. At the same time, he stared at Yun Jian with a serious look, his brows furrowed into a bumpy hill. As for Shun Bai, who was standing next to Yun Jian, she was completely dumbfounded. How could she be the witch goddess of the Yulong continent? Isn't the Yulong continent a legendary place? And isn't the witch goddess a legendary god? How could she appear here? An ordinary girl who did not know the situation looked at Yun Jian. In order to please the campus belle Lin Qiui, she sneered at Yun Jian. Why was this ordinary girl called ordinary? That was because many of the people in the Meteor Aristocrat Academy were young ladies and young masters of aristocratic families who had migrated from the Yulong continent thousands of years ago. Obviously, this ordinary girl was not a young lady of an aristocratic family. After this ordinary girl finished speaking to Yun Jian, the surroundings fell into a dead silence. Even Lin Qiui didn't immediately respond to this ordinary girl's words. Even though Lin Qiui really hoped that Yun Jian was just like what this ordinary girl had said, that she was not the sorcerer goddess of Yulong continent. But, after the ordinary girl finished speaking, the scene fell silent. In the end, it was Song Zilin, who was as gentle as a gentleman, who stood up and explained. Cough cough, all the descendants of the aristocratic families know that no one can impersonate the sorcerer god of Yulong mainland. Once someone impersonates him, they'll be destroyed. This calamity will happen without you knowing. You will die in a few days and you won't be able to find out the reason. Speaking of this, Song Zilin clenched his fist and placed it in front of his mouth. He coughed a few times as if to ease the awkward atmosphere. He looked at Yun Jian in front of everyone and continued to speak. What she said just now, if you're not a member of an aristocratic family, you won't know that the sorcerer goddess is the daughter of the sorcerer clan of Yulong continent. She's the one who controls the life and death of Yulong continent. So she's a member of an aristocratic family. As a member of an aristocratic family, she must know that impersonating the sorcerer goddess will result in her being cursed and dying mysteriously. Even if she's stupid, she wouldn't joke about her own life. Once, there was a girl from the Song family who impersonated the sorcerer goddess as a joke. In the end, in less than 3 days, she was strangely run over by a truck and died. In the eyes of everyone, Song Zilin was usually a gentlemanly young master. He was also very nice and never lied or spouted nonsense. His temperament was completely different from Leng Yichen, who was extremely cold and wore sunglasses. Even if a girl he didn't know fell to the ground, Song Zilin would walk over to help her. At this critical juncture, Song Zilin's analysis of this matter was very organized and clear. After listening to Song Zilin's analysis, everyone present looked at Yun Jian and paused. However, Song Zilin's words were heard clearly again. His words made everyone swallow their saliva. There was a moment of panic. Chapter 1764. When Lin Qiui heard Yun Jian admit that she was the sorcerer goddess, she wanted to fight back like a normal girl against Yun Jian. However, as the daughter of a large family, Lin Qiui knew the consequences of impersonating the sorcerer goddess. If Yun Jian impersonated the sorcerer goddess, she would be cursed. Of course, the person who impersonated the sorcerer goddess must know about the existence of the sorcerer goddess and use her identity to obtain something or gain someone's trust. Only then would this terrifying curse be effective on her. If Yun Jian was not the sorcerer goddess, then this curse would have already been effective. Everyone blinked. They did not expect that impersonating the sorcerer goddess would result in such an outcome. If they were to accidentally impersonate the sorcerer god, those who don't know will not be cursed if they impersonate the sorcerer goddess. Song Zilin once again spoke out the fear in everyone's hearts. After a pause, Song Zilin continued to joke with the large group of ordinary girls who were chasing after Leng Yichen, Song Zilin and Gong Shangjin, who were oblivious to the situation. Just now, Song Zilin said, "However, let me tell you a very bad news. Now that you know, if you dare to impersonate the sorcerer goddess, you will be cursed." As soon as this was said, everyone trembled. Yun Jian, who was standing in the distance, narrowed her eyes and did not speak. This curse did exist. It was set by her when she was the sorcerer goddess. It was to prevent people from impersonating her from the Yulong continent. Of course, Yun Jian did not expect that there were people from the Yulong continent on Earth. What was even more unexpected was that these people from the Yulong continent brought the legend of the sorcerer goddess to Earth and let so many people know about the existence of the sorcerer goddess. Of course, this curse was only effective on people who knew about the existence of the sorcerer goddess. Therefore, in the past, Yun Jian was not worried that the people on Earth would be cursed because of this. Now that people from the Yulong continent's families had come to Earth and so many people knew about this, Sister Death God, why does such a terrifying curse exist? Xinbai was good in her studies and had a good ability to accept things. She had already reacted and accepted Yun Jian. At this moment, Xinbai turned her head and asked Yun Jian in front of everyone. Because of Song Zilin's words, everyone present turned their eyes to Yun Jian. Their eyes also followed Yun Jian closely. After Xinbai asked this question, everyone stared at Yun Jian as if they were waiting for Yun Jian's reply. Song Zilin said that if Yun Jian dared to say that she was the witch god, then she must be the legendary witch god. The people around them were all students, and students were generally more curious. Everyone wanted to know more about the strange curses. Chapter 1765. Yun Jian's words reverberated throughout the entire place. Everyone who heard her words had a moment of horror and shock. Especially the young ladies and young masters of the aristocratic families. At this moment, a large group of people were dumbfounded as they listened to Yun Jian's words. They opened and closed their mouths, but in the end no words came out. The young ladies and young masters of the aristocratic families had only heard the elders of their families mention what Yun Jian said. In this vast universe there were tens of millions of continents. That's right, there were tens of millions of worlds like the Yulong continent other than Earth. However, these tens of millions of continents were all connected to each other. There was no way to go to Earth alone, or to go from Earth to the tens of millions of continents directly. Even if the top masters of the tens of millions of continents wanted to go to Earth, there was no way at all. Earth and the continents were like two unrelated worlds, each living their own lives. Until a few thousand years ago, the Lord God of the Gods continent forcibly tore open the passage from the Yulong continent to Earth, connecting the two places that would never be connected. As for Leng Yichen, Song Zilin, Gong Shangjin, Lin Qiui, Xinbai, and the other ancestors of the aristocratic families of the Yulong continent, they came here through that passage. However, hundreds of years ago the passage collapsed, so the aristocratic families of Leng Yichen and the others did not know how to return to the Yulong continent. After settling down on Earth for a few generations, their understanding of the Yulong continent could only be found through the records of their ancestors or the books passed down. Undoubtedly, these people did not know that the stone cave in the ancient tomb was the entrance to the Yulong continent. Of course, even if these people knew, they could not go back because it had been passed down for generations. The ancestors who had the strength of the Yulong continent had passed away, leaving behind Leng Yichen and the others who were only descendants of the aristocratic families. They did not have the ability to pass through the stone cave at all. However, whether it was Leng Yichen or the descendants of the aristocratic families present, they had all subconsciously heard that the Yulong continent was at the bottom of the tens of millions of continents. The women of the Yulong continent were so lowly that any man from the continent could violate them. The people of the Yulong continent lived a life worse than death. That was the fate of the weak. However, at that time, the daughter of the Sorcerer clan led the Sorcerer clan to rule the entire Yulong continent. In just a few decades, the Yulong continent became an existence second only to the God's continent. Among the tens of millions of continents, the Yulong continent was originally the lowest level continent. Chapter 1766. After Yun Jian finished speaking, a large group of people stood around her. There were at least a few hundred people. But whether it was the group of girls who chased after Leng Yichen's group, or Lin Qiui and Xinbai, at this moment, everyone was stupefied and speechless. When Yun Jian said what she said just now, it was as if the people around her could see the smoky battlefield. And the sorcerer goddess's body that made people tremble. Lin Qiui swallowed hard. When she came back to her senses, she saw that Leng Yichen, whom she admired, was looking at Yun Jian with great interest. Seeing this, Lin Qiui's hands suddenly clenched into fists. Who cared if she was the sorcerer goddess or not? How dare she attract the attention of her man? She must have a death wish. Don't talk as if you're really the sorcerer goddess. Young Master Lin just said that you're the sorcerer goddess. Do you really think you're the sorcerer goddess? Besides, we don't even know if that curse is effective. What if you mysteriously die in a few days? What if you're a fake? Ha, I don't believe such a made-up lie unless you're really the sorcerer goddess of Yulong continent. Lin Chui's eyes turned. She suddenly remembered what Song Zilin said just now. He only said that Yun Jian was the sorcerer goddess, but he couldn't be sure that Yun Jian was the sorcerer goddess. After she finished speaking, the crowd that was silent from Yun Jian's words instantly came back to their senses. Lin Chui's words rang out again. At this moment, Lin Chui suddenly thought of a very important point. She said confidently in front of everyone, "Oh right, our Lin family's ancestors once recorded that the sorcerer goddess had fallen thousands of years ago. They also left behind a sentence." When Lin Chui said this, many of the surrounding students' curiosity was piqued by Lin Chui. "Chui, what is it? Tell us quickly, everyone is curious." A few girls standing beside Lin Chui curiously asked Lin Chui with intimate words. Lin Chui's family was a big family, and Lin Chui had a high status in the family. Therefore, some of the girls in the school were proud to be friends with Lin Chui. Hearing the people's interest, Lin Chui was even more confident that Yun Jian was definitely a fake. She definitely couldn't say the words that the sorcerer goddess had said. Therefore, Lin Chui confidently raised her head and said to Yun in front of everyone, "If you're really the sorcerer goddess, then you should know what this sentence means, right?" She definitely couldn't. Lin Chui lifted her head confidently and looked at Yun Jian in disdain. And Lin Chui could feel that Leng Yichen was looking at her. This made Chui feel that her spring was a new for a moment. To say Chiu Chui Lin Lin's was talking to of Su's least Lin, Sazazas. Yun Jian almost sneered. After a pause, Yun Jian couldn't be bothered with Lin Chui anymore. Chapter 1767. It was obvious that Lin Chui knew the Leng family. Lin Chui's family was also an aristocratic family from the Yulong continent, and it was one of the most influential families in the country. Leng Yichen's family, Song Zilin's family, Gong Shangjin's family, and Lin Chui's family were all well-known families among the aristocratic families, and they often interacted with each other. Therefore, when Lin Chui saw the old man, she jumped up and down and pretended to be a naive young girl. She reached out and grabbed the old man's arm and said very intimately, "Grandpa Leng, why are you here?" When Lin Chui talked to the old man, she glanced at Yun Jian from the corner of her eyes, as if it was an honor for her to know the old man. The old man was Leng Yichen's biological grandfather and the current master of the Leng family, Master Leng. Master Leng got the news that a girl in the Meteor aristocratic school claimed that she was the goddess of witchcraft. Therefore, Master Leng hurried to the school with his family. The moment he saw Yun Jian, Master Leng felt that Yun Jian was extraordinary, so he stopped her at once. Old Master Leng ignored his grandson Leng Yichen and granddaughter Lin Chui, who were family friends. His sharp gaze landed on Yun Jian as he asked her in front of everyone, "What do you think? Young lady, are you really the goddess of witchcraft from the Wu family on the Yulong continent?" Master Leng was very excited when he said that, and everyone present could feel his emotions at the moment. As soon as Master Leng asked that question, Lin Chui, who was standing next to him, said in a sharp voice, "Grandpa Leng, she's not. I just asked around. She's not the goddess of witchcraft at all. She's just bluffing." As Lin Chui said that, she pointed her nose at Yun Jian and made a few strange sounds. Yun Jian, on the other hand, stopped in her tracks and studied old Master Leng with narrowed eyes. "Are you from the Leng family?" Yun Jian raised her eyebrows slightly. "Yes, I am." Master Leng nodded excitedly. Seeing that Master Leng was talking to Yun Jian, Lin Chui was unhappy again. "Grandpa Leng, she's just a swindler. She scared us just now. TSK, we almost thought that she was the legendary goddess of witchcraft. I was wondering how the legendary goddess of witchcraft could look like this." Lin Chui's was talking again. How could the legendary goddess of witchcraft? Was Leng's heart's eyes? How could it be so exquisite? Lin Chui did not want to admit it, but she had to admit that Yun Jian was beautiful. Lin was so beautiful, even she wanted to tear her face was beautiful. How could there be such a beautiful woman in this world? The goddess of witchcraft was already so powerful. If she also had such a beautiful face, how could they still live? Master Leng ignored Lin Chui's words. At this moment, in front of everyone, Master Leng was looking at Yun Jian with an indescribable excitement. Yun Jian suddenly smiled. She looked at Master Leng and asked again, "Are you from the Leng family who has been guarding the ancient mythical beast Tao Tai in the northern part of the Yulong continent?" Yun Jian's words confused everyone. What did she mean by the northern part of the Yulong continent? What ancient mythical beast Tao Tai? Are you going to say something to make us think that you're the goddess of witchcraft? Let me tell you, we won't believe you. Lin Chui was slightly stunned when she heard that. Then she quickly reacted and yelled at Yun Jian. However, just when everyone was puzzled, Lin Chui's unpleasant yelling was heard. Old Master Leng, who stood in front of Yun Jian, suddenly knelt down in front of Yun Jian like a commoner in Yulong mainland worshipping the sorcerer deity. Goddess of witchcraft. You're really the goddess of witchcraft. 1,000 years ago, when the Leng family was still in the Yulong continent, we were once indebted to you. The Leng family will never forget the teachings of our ancestors. Yun Jian didn't pay attention to what the people around her were saying. She looked at Master Leng, who was kneeling in front of her, and continued to ask him calmly. The Leng family of the Yulong continent wasn't in a bad situation back then. Why would the Leng family, who had guarded the ancient divine beast Tao Tai for thousands of years for the Yulong continent, fall to such a state? The Leng family's status and situation in the Yulong continent weren't bad back then, and they were also one of the families that guarded the ancient divine beast. Yun Jian was puzzled because of this. I don't know much about it, but according to the records of our ancestors, ever since the fall of the sorcerer god, a group of mysterious men in black who were so powerful that no one could stop them started hunting down all the aristocratic families who were on good terms with the sorcerer tribe. The Leng family was one of them. Back then, the Leng family was hunted down by the mysterious men in black, and only a few of them were left. The few who escaped alive were the ancestors of the Leng family. Master Leng told Yun Jian everything he knew. Mysterious men in black? So, all the aristocratic families that were on good terms with the sorcerer tribe were killed? Yun Jian frowned. In the classroom. Sister Death, I didn't know you were so powerful. Shunbai looked at Yun Jian with admiration. Go back to your seat. Yun Jian's red lips curled slightly. She didn't reply to Shunbai but spoke to Shunbai instead. Shunbai's father wanted her to protect Shunbai, and the descendant of the family who attacked Shunbai's brother, Shin Shaoqing, wasn't studying at Meteor Academy. She exposed her identity today because she wanted to blow up this matter as much as possible. This way the fish would take the bait. Oh. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Shunbai instinctively returned to her seat. Meteor Academy usually ended school early at 3:30 p.m. The school ended at the same time. Look, isn't that our school's hunk, young Master Leng? Why is he in our class? Look, he's actually walking over there. Young Master Lin and young Master Jean are here too. Oh my god, am I dreaming? Chapter 1770. Yun Jian's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she neatly put the 3 textbooks into her bag, zipped it up, and walked in front of Shunbai. Death God sister, you packed up so quickly? I just saw you bring back 3 textbooks. Have you finished all the homework the teacher gave us? Shunbai tidied up her homework and asked Yun Jian. The students of Meteor Academy were all rich children. Among the people in the school, there weren't many who entered because of good grades. And these rich children who studied in Meteor Academy never did homework. The teachers couldn't control this. There was no one like Shunbai and Yun Jian who brought their workbooks back. And Yun Jian faintly replied to Shunbai. Today's homework was very difficult. Death God sister, you actually finished it? As long as they talked about homework, even if Leng Yichen, who she admired, came, she wouldn't pay attention to it. Shunbai was such a good student who loved to study. It's not difficult. If you don't understand, I can teach you. Yun Jian's red arc hooked as she indifferently said. Okay. At this time, Shunbai stopped tidying up the homework she brought home and nodded towards Yun Jian. Leng Yichen and the other 2 who were ignored on the side had a long black line in front of their eyes. Especially Leng Yichen. This was the first time someone talked to each other enthusiastically in front of him and ignored his existence. If it was said that when he first saw Shunbai, he couldn't remember her. But now that she was looking for her homework, Shunbai, who used to pursue him enthusiastically, but now acted as if she didn't see him, was very abrupt. So Leng Yichen couldn't help but look at Shunbai a few more times. Hey, this is the first time our young Master Leng has been ignored by a woman. The 2 of you are really amazing. Gong Shangjin, who always had a sloppy personality, walked in front of Yun Jian and Shunbai and said with a smile. Oh, it's you guys. Shunbai finally reacted. Leng Yichen and the other 2 actually came to her classroom. My grandfather invited the 2 of you to my house. Especially Yun Jian. Leng Yichen, who took off his sunglasses, was quite good-looking. He glanced sideways at Yun Jian and said, Wow, really? Shunbai's eyes lit up. At the same time, she hastened to pack her bag. After packing, she hooked an arm around Yun Jian and said to Yun Jian, Sister Death, let's go together. Since Shunbai wanted to go, Yun Jian naturally followed. The Lung family's villa was slightly different from the Shin family's villa. The Lung family's villa was more antique. Walking into the Lung family's villa, Yun Jian felt like she had returned to Yulong mainland. In the living room of the Lung family's house, Master Lung saw Yun Jian, so he immediately got off the main seat and invited Yun Jian to sit in the main seat. "You're here. Please take a seat." Chapter 1771. This pleasant voice made the group of women present, who had guessed that the man's voice was handsome, couldn't help but sit up straight. This included Xing Lingling and Zhang Qiuzi, who had been married for years and had grown children. As long as it was a woman, when she heard this voice, she would not be able to stop herself from fantasizing about the owner of this voice, who was so handsome that even the gods would be enraged. What was more, when Ce appeared at the entrance of the Lung residence's living room and made the women gasp and the men feel so inferior that they could not bear to look at his face, everyone was stunned. Who is this? He's too handsome. His looks were simply inhumanly handsome. Xing Lingling stared at Ce, who had appeared out of nowhere, and wiped away her drool, swallowing hard. On the other side, Ce, who was inhumanly handsome, was making his way to Yun Jian. It was not until Ce came to Yun Jian and pulled Yun Jian up from the main seat and into his arms that he introduced himself with a satisfied smile. "Hello, I'm Xiao Jian's legal husband." Ce enunciated the words legal husband clearly, as if he was afraid that the people present did not know that he and Yun Jian were married. If it were not for the inappropriate occasion, Ce would have taken out his marriage certificate again. Cough cough, "You're married?" Everyone present, including Leng Yichen, Song Zilin and Gong Shangjin, stared at Yun Jian in bewilderment, their jaws dropping in bewilderment. "You're married?" Old Master Leng exclaimed in shock as he stared at Yun Jian. The witch goddess was married. The news was so overwhelming that Old Master Lung could not process it for a long time. Amen. Yun Jian nodded in front of everyone and showed the diamond ring on her ring finger to the crowd. The women around them looked at Yun Jian in envy and disbelief. Especially Xing Lingling. Xing Lingling was envious. Why had she not met such a handsome man when she was young? Xing Lingling's husband, who was also the eldest son of the Lung family, had a beer belly. He was not tall nor handsome and reeked of sweat. Xing Lingling was envious of Yun Jian, so her gaze on Yun Jian became even more hostile. Ce lowered his head slightly, his gaze fixed on Yun Jian without straying an inch away. It had been so long since he saw his Xiao Jian. She had gotten thinner again. It was time to nourish herself. How was she going to give birth to a soccer team for him when she was so skinny? Old master, bad news. Third madam is going into labor. Right at this moment, a servant stumbled into the room and shouted at Master Lung. "What? She's about to give birth?" Master Lung straightened his back in fear and walked out of the room with the others. The third daughter-in-law of the Lung family was pregnant now, so she couldn't leave the room. But she didn't expect that she would suddenly give birth now. The Lung family was in a frenzy. 3 hours later, Ce hugged Yun Jian and stood not far away from the Lung family's temporary delivery room. Third Madame Lung's screams and cries of agony came from the delivery room. She had been screaming for 3 hours from the pain of labor. Her voice was getting softer as if she had no energy to scream anymore. "Is the baby not out yet?" Old Master Lung and Old Master Lung were anxious. "Not yet. The baby's head isn't even out yet. I'm afraid the baby can't bear to leave the womb." The midwife said as she ordered the servants to continue preparing the items for delivery and went to the delivery room. Ce twitched his lips and muttered to himself, "Not a soccer team anymore." Chapter 1772. Yun Jian was stunned and didn't immediately understand the meaning behind Si Yi's words. Shen Bai, who was standing to the side, was anxiously listening to the third madam's hoarse cries in the delivery room and inadvertently overheard Si Yi's words. Yun Jian and the other two could have left first, but the third madam of the Lung family, who was currently giving birth, was a relative of the Shen family. Although she wasn't a direct relative, she still had some contact with the Shen family. In the past, the third madam would bring delicious food and fun things for the Shen family's children. The third madam was very kind, and Shen Bai was one of the people who had received the third madam's kindness. Therefore, when the third madam suddenly gave birth, Shen Bai naturally didn't want to leave first. Shen Bai was also a person who knew how to repay kindness. When she heard Si Yi's words, Yun Jian was slightly stunned. What do you mean by not giving birth to a football team? Yun Jian was stunned, but she didn't ask. However, Shen Bai, who was standing to the side, heard this and she unconsciously asked on behalf of Yun Jian, "What's a football team? Is there a football team around here? Why haven't I heard of it?" Shen Bai's heart was anxious for the third madam, who was still giving birth in the delivery room, so she didn't think when she said this. A child. Si Yi's eyes were fixed on Yun Jian. His tall figure shrouded Yun Jian's right side, and he could see the beautiful side of Yun Jian's face if he lowered his head slightly. These two words were considered a reply to Shen Bai. At this moment, Shen Bai didn't hear Si Yi's words at all. She kept looking at the delivery room with an anxious expression. Lung Yichen, Song Zilin and Gong Shangjin, who were standing to the side, clearly heard Si Yi's words. A football team equals a child? And Si Yi just said that he wouldn't give birth to a football team? This meant, could it be that he originally wanted Yun Jian to give birth to a football team's child? This was something only a sow could do. Cough, cough, cough. I'm going out to get some fresh air. After Song Zilin understood Si Yi's words, he couldn't help but cough twice. Then he turned around and dragged Gong Shangjin, who was still unaware of the situation, out of the room. This was truly torturous. They were about the same age, but she had already thought about how many children she would have in the future. TSK. Lung Yichen didn't go out because his third aunt was still in labor. Yun Jian reacted quickly. Si Yi's words, coupled with the reactions of Song Zilin and the others, made Yun Jian's face instantly turn red. Master Lung and the other members of the Lung family who were standing around didn't notice them. At this moment, Yun Jian held Si Yi's hand and was about to walk out. Is third brother's wife all right? Could it be a difficult birth? Xing Lingling, the eldest daughter-in-law of the Lung family, asked at this time. Before Yun Jian and Si Yi could leave, the door of the delivery room was opened. Xing Lingling's jinx came true. The midwife walked out of the delivery room anxiously. Her hands were covered in blood. As soon as the midwife walked out, she said to everyone in a trembling voice, "Hemorrhage, hemorrhage. Third madam is having a difficult birth, and her water has broken. But the child's body hasn't come out yet. What should we do? Master Lung, hurry up and send her to a proper hospital. If it's any later, we can only save one child." The midwife's trembling voice spread throughout the room, but it was an absolute blow to everyone present. What? Difficult birth? Third brother of the Lung family almost fainted when he heard the midwife's words. Then hurry up and send her to the hospital. Hurry. Although Master Lung was also frightened as the head of the Lung family, he was naturally much calmer. He quickly spoke. Xing Lingling, who was hit by her own jinx, was so scared that she patted her own mouth and didn't dare to speak anymore. Just when everyone present was panicking and didn't know how to deal with the pregnant woman who was still in labor, a calm but heavenly female voice spread throughout the room. Chapter 1773. Right after Yun Jian said that, old Master Lung's eyes that were filled with despair and dejection flashed with a glimmer of hope. The midwife had been prepared a long time ago. The third madam of the Lung family was getting bigger and bigger and could give birth at any time, so the Lung family had prepared the best midwife. In this era, the hospital technology and equipment were not particularly developed. It was fine if a pregnant woman had a normal delivery, but if she encountered a difficult labor, the chances of survival were almost slim. Of course, the chances of a difficult labor were relatively small, only about 20%. If it was now, if she had a difficult labor, she could immediately be sent to the hospital for a cesarean section. Although there would be a scar on the belly after the delivery, it was better than having her life in danger. In 1999, even if there was something like a cesarean section in this era, few hospitals would carry it out. After all, the technology of a cesarean section was not very good at this time. If they were not careful, it was very likely that both the mother and the child would die. Naturally, the hospital did not dare to try it easily. Therefore, in this era, if there was a difficult labor, unless a cesarean section was performed which had no chance of success, the chances of survival were really pitifully low. And even if a cesarean section was to be performed, it must be done in a regular hospital under normal circumstances. Obviously, at this juncture, the third madam's situation did not allow for any delay. As soon as Yun Jian finished speaking, Master Lung's eyes lit up again. He knew that as the sorcerer goddess, Yun Jian would never say something that she was not confident about. Hey, are you treating human life as a joke? Xing Lingling, who had cursed the third madam to have a difficult labor just now, heard Yun Jian's words and became smug again. Ever since Yun Jian appeared for the first time and was invited to the main seat by Master Lung, Xing Lingling hated Yun Jian very much. The main seat was only for the noblest person in the Lung family. Even the first madam of the Lung family, Xing Lingling, had never sat there. Yun Jian was an outsider. How could she? Sister Grim Reaper. We all believe in you. You even saved my brother's life. The third madam treats me very well, you must save her. At this time Shunbai looked at Yun Jian. She put her hands together and looked at Yun Jian with begging eyes. She saved your brother, Shin Shaoqing? Didn't your brother already? Declared dead. Lung Yichen stared at Shunbai with wide eyes and asked in astonishment. Big brother is currently recovering. Hearing Lung Yichen's question, Shunbai's cheeks flushed red. Alive? She saved him. Xing Lingling crossed her arms in front of her chest just now. She didn't stop Yun Jian from saving her, but only took the opportunity to mock Yun Jian. It would be best if something happened to third madam and the child in her womb. It would be better if he was dead. Xing Lingling did not care about third madam's life at all. At this moment, after hearing Shunbai and Lung Yichen's words, Xing Lingling's face was slightly startled. She was clearly frightened. How could a dead person come back to life? Was that for real? At this time, Yun Jian ignored everyone as she walked straight to the delivery room and said indifferently, "Prepare a set of surgical tools for me and perform the C-section immediately." With the Lung family's influence, it was not difficult for them to obtain these tools. Ce stood where he was, watching Yun Jian walk into the delivery room with a gentle gaze. When his Xiao Jian was pregnant with his child in the future, he would definitely capture all the best midwives in the world and have them be on standby for delivery at any time from the day Xiao Jian was pregnant. He would not allow any hint of danger to exist. At this moment, the best midwives in the world were completely unaware that they were being targeted. Moreover, the person who targeted them would bring them home on the first day of his woman's pregnancy. When the doctors found out that this person had done so, they looked like they had eaten dog sh*t. Brother, other people only prepare midwives when the due date is approaching. Why did you prepare all the doctors on the first day of your wife's pregnancy? Chapter 1774. Zi grinned. It was fortunate that he had come to the Lung family to look for Xiao Jian today and had even seen the third madam of the Lung family giving birth. If it wasn't for that, he wouldn't have known that giving birth was such a painful thing. Thinking about how he had wanted Xiao Jian to give birth to a football team for him, Ce felt like smacking himself to death. He would rather be beaten to death than to let his Xiao Jian suffer so much. Young man, it's hard for a woman to give birth to a child. Back when my first wife was still alive, she was in pain for 4 times and left me 4 children. So, if I had doted on her more back then, I wouldn't have to regret it so much now. Old Master Lung went to Ce and grumbled softly. Then Old Master Lung turned to Ce. Not knowing Ce's identity, Old Master Lung patted Ce's shoulder and said earnestly, "Young man, you have to pamper your wife more in the future. Don't disappoint me." Old Master Lung's earnest words made Ce's eyes light up. "I don't need your reminder," Ce said with a straight face, not even looking at Old Master Lung. Old Master Lung chuckled at that. "That's great. That's great." The witch goddess had a descendant now. Old Master Lung was relieved because he knew that his third madam was absolutely safe with Yun Jian around. Yun Jian would not disappoint Old Master Lung. 2 hours later, a baby's cries were heard and Yun Jian walked out of the delivery room. The midwife's coaxing voice came from the delivery room. Everyone who heard it breathed a sigh of relief. The mother and child are both safe now. Send the mother to the hospital in an hour. The hospital will take care of the following symptoms, Yun Jian said faintly. Even when he knew the outcome, Old Master Lung's tense heart relaxed. Really? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You are the benefactor of our husband and wife. Thank you. When old Master Leng heard Yunjian say that his wife's life was no longer in danger and the child was born safely, he rushed over to grab Yunjian's hand to thank her. Before his hand could touch Yunjian, however, it was slapped away by a large palm. Ce flung old Master Leng's hand away and said with a dark face, "Don't touch my woman's hand." Ce said this with a straight face, his cold and handsome demeanor sending a shudder through the third son of the Leng family. In the end, old Master Leng bowed to Yunjian from afar and thanked him again. After Madame Yunjian's family, the Leng family's family, Yunjian. After making sure everything was fine, Yunjian returned to the Shin family with Shin Bai. Old Master Leng to Yunza's family for a while longer. 4 Yunjians for him for Yun. She said that she was going to Enhun to look for him. She had said this many times, but Yunjian never went to Enhun to look for Ce. Although Ce didn't say anything, he was still a little disappointed. It was not Yunjian's fault though. The time was not up yet. The surprise had to come after the disappointment. Only then would one feel surprised and delighted. As for what Yunjian's surprise was, it wasn't time yet, so it was a secret. When Yunjian and Shin Bai returned to the Shin family, they saw Shin Wei's worried expression. Yunjian couldn't help but narrow her eyes. "You're back." Shin Wei looked at Yunjian with worry and asked. "Yeah, we went to Grandpa Leng's house as guests. Then third madam gave birth, so we came back late," Shin Bai explained to Shin Wei. It was already 8:30 p.m., so they came back late. Just as Shin Bai finished speaking to her father, Shin Wei nodded to Shin Bai. "Then we'll go do our homework. We won't make it in time." Shin Bai turned around and held Yunjian's hand as they ran upstairs. Yunjian, wait, I have something to say to you," Shin Wei suddenly called out to Yunjian. "What is it?" Shin Bai was stunned. Go back to your room and do your homework," Shin Wei urged Shin Bai. Okay. If you can't let me hear it, Shin Bai pretended to be angry and snorted the word, When this came out of Shin Bai's mouth, it didn't sound like a bad woman's voice. Instead it sounded cute. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and walked into the study with Shin Wei. Great witch god. Those aristocratic families that colluded with each other to deal with us suddenly sent me an invitation, saying that they want to invite all the aristocratic families to a banquet. Just as they walked into the study, Shin Wei cut to the chase and frowned as he spoke to Yunjian. Unexpectedly, when Yunjian heard this, her eyebrows raised slightly. Chapter 1775. Did they invite all the aristocratic families? Yunjian narrowed her eyes and asked Shin Wei. Yes, that includes the Leng family that you went to today. Shin Wei answered truthfully. Agree, we'll go to this banquet. Yunjian suddenly turned her head and looked at Shin Wei. Her smile made Shin Wei unable to describe how to describe it. Even Shin Wei himself didn't know when he became Yunjian's subordinate. Now the entire Shin family was under Yunjian's control. Yes. Shin Wei nodded. Shin Wei had mentioned before that many of the students studying in Meteor Aristocratic Academy were the descendants of aristocratic families. Now, there was a very common phenomenon. The aristocratic families of the students studying in Meteor Aristocratic Academy were generally the same as Shin Wei's Shin family. They didn't associate themselves with those aristocratic families. As for those aristocratic families, they all sent their children to a place called Dark Aristocratic Academy to study. Meteor Aristocratic Academy. Dark Aristocratic Academy. The families of the former students were all on the Shin family's side. The families of the latter students were all in cahoots with those aristocratic families. If you don't cooperate with our aristocratic families, we'll kill your aristocratic families. Therefore there was such a saying before. Which side these aristocratic families stood on depended on which academy they sent their children to study in. Currently, it seemed that the aristocratic families of the students studying in Dark Aristocratic Academy were generally stronger than the Shin and Leng families. Therefore Shin Wei's son, Shin Shaocheng, was clearly framed by those aristocratic families who wallowed in the mire. But in order to protect the entire Shin family, Shin Wei forcibly endured it. On Friday, Meteor Aristocratic Academy was on holiday. Many aristocratic families' children were sent to Dark Aristocratic Academy. This time, the aristocratic families that were hostile to the Shin and Leng families set the banquet at Dark Aristocratic Academy. The theme of this banquet was a masquerade ball. Apart from the aristocratic families' children who could participate, all the Meteor and Dark Aristocratic Academy's children who weren't from aristocratic families could also participate. Naturally, they had to dress up before going. Shin Bai didn't know the danger of this banquet. She was like an innocent little girl, choosing her favorite dress and carefully dressing herself up. Yun Jian wore a black evening gown that showed off her figure. This exquisite evening gown outlined her perfect figure incisively and vividly. Even from afar, one would be attracted by this perfect figure. This black evening dress was actually a very ordinary dress, but when Yun Jian wore it, there was an indescribable sense of nobility. Many people were already present when he entered the Dark Noble Academy's masquerade ball. Chapter 1776. It's you too. The moment he saw Yun Jian and Shen Bai walk over, Song Zilin quickly recognized the masked Yun Jian and Shen Bai. He happily waved at Yun Jian and Shen Bai. For the matter 2 days ago, I thank you on behalf of Third Aunt. Even Leng Yichen, who always had a cold appearance, nodded towards Yun Jian. Yun Jian also very indifferently nodded. Leng Yichen and the other two were all wearing masks and looked like young masters in their youth. Yichen, so you're here. At this time, a very loud voice sounded. Yun Jian didn't need to look to know that the owner of this voice was Lin Qiui, who had sprayed her and Shen Bai with water spray at Meteor Academy. When she saw Yun Jian and Shen Bai, Lin Qiui, who was also wearing a mask, immediately recognized Yun Jian and Shen Bai. It's you guys. Why are you guys here? This was Lin Qiui's first reaction. When she saw Yun Jian's perfect figure that made people jealous wrapped in this unremarkable black evening gown, Lin Qiui's jealousy rose to the extreme. Just as Lin Qiui fiercely glared at Yun Jian's eyes suddenly lit up. She reached out and grabbed Shen Bai, then turned a small circle to the left to dodge. A jet of bright red liquid sprayed in the air like a fountain and flew past where Yun Jian and Shen Bai were standing at a speed that was visible to everyone, heading straight for Lin Qiui, who was standing right in front of the spot where Yun Jian and Shen Bai were standing just now. This was the trajectory of a glass of red wine, and this uncontrollable glass of red wine just happened to spill on Lin Qiui's evening gown. Lin Qiui's evening gown was white, but with this spill, one part of it instantly turned red. Seeing this, Lin Qiui's face turned green. Not far away, the 16 or 17-year-old girl who purposely poured red wine on Yun Jian saw that she poured it on the wrong person, but she didn't show any signs of remorse. What are you doing? Lin Qiui exclaimed when she saw the girl pouring red wine on herself. The person I want to knock down isn't you. Who allowed you to stand there? The 16 or 17-year-old girl raised her head and glared at Lin Qiui righteously. Now Lin Qiui knew that she had become Yun Jian's scapegoat. Why did you dodge just now? You did it on purpose, didn't you? Lin Qiui roared at Yun Jian again. Yun Jian ignored her. Lin Qiui was so angry that she glared angrily at the 16 or 17-year-old girl. She said fiercely, "Which aristocratic family are you from? Do you want to die? Who's the one courting death? I'm from the Lan clan, and my father is the patriarch of the Lan clan. Do you believe that I'll get my father to exterminate all of you?" The 16 or 17-year-old girl sneered at Lin Qiui. This young girl's name is Lan Biqing. She is the young lady of the Lan family. The Lan family was the largest aristocratic family in the southern part of the Jiang province. Lin Qiui's Lin family was nothing compared to the Lan clan. So when she heard Lan Biqing's words, Lin Qiui was so scared that she shrank back. Seeing this, Lan Biqing turned to look at Yun Jian smugly. She saw Yun Jian's slim figure and thought that she was too beautiful. So, she could not help but come over to fix her. She did not expect that she would be the wrong person. Lan Biqing thought that she would be able to see the fear on Yun Jian's face after she revealed her identity. However, Lan Biqing was disappointed. Yun Jian was not flustered at all. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked at her. Seeing this, Lan Biqing was furious. Just as Lan Biqing was about to do something to Yun Jian, the scene suddenly quieted down. On the stage, the patriarch of the Lan clan, Lan Hongtian, who was also Lan Biqing's father, was standing there. He gestured for the crowd to quiet down. Lan Hongtian's power was overwhelming. So, the crowd immediately quieted down and did not dare to say a word. Then Lan Hongtian's voice rang out. "The reason I'm holding a masquerade party here today is to let everyone enjoy themselves." Chapter 1777. Whether it was the students of Meteor Academy or Dark Academy, they all knew about the existence of the Yulong continent and the legends of the Sorcerer God and the Lord God. Of course, these rumors were spread by the young masters and ladies of the aristocratic families. Of course, if the ordinary students who were studying in the academy heard these young ladies and young masters from aristocratic families spread the bizarre news that there was a Xiuxian continent called Yulong continent in addition to Earth, it was another matter whether the ordinary students believed it or not. Because of this, when the head of the Lan family, Lan Hongtian, stood on the stage and spoke to everyone below, everyone pricked up their ears to listen. Especially those who did not know about the incident at Meteor Academy where Yun Jian admitted that she was the sorcerer god. In the past, they had only heard of the legendary story of the sorcerer god of the Yulong continent. In their hearts, the sorcerer god was like an ordinary person seeing a god. It was an impossible figure. But at this moment, the head of the Lan family, Lan Hongtian, actually said in front of everyone that there was a young lady who claimed to be the sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe of the Yulong continent. This was like standing on the street and suddenly someone claimed to be a fairy who came down from the heavens. It was unbelievable. But one thing that they had to admit was that what Lan Hongtian said just now really attracted the attention of everyone present. At this moment, all the students had the same thought. They wanted to see who the young lady who claimed to be the sorcerer god was. What did she look like? Was this matter true or not? After Lan Hongtian's voice fell, the dance hall was silent. Yun Jian's red arc was slightly raised. She did not stand out even though she was called out. This was a masquerade ball. Everyone around was wearing masks. Even if Yun Jian did not stand out, no one would recognize her. That is too much. The legendary sorcerer god is the existence of the Yulong continent. He is the object of our aristocratic family's admiration and admiration. How could such a powerful person appear here? It's obvious that the young lady who claimed to be the sorcerer god is another ghost impersonator. Seeing his father Lan Hongtian say this in front of so many people, Lan Biqing couldn't help but ridicule him. How could such a noble person like the sorcerer god appear on earth? Cough. Not necessarily. Song Zilin touched his nose and complained in a low voice. Why not? A person of such high status like the sorcerer god would never appear here. Lan Biqing's voice was loud and confident. Cough. Song Zilin glanced at him and rubbed his nose. He ignored Lan Biqing. Why couldn't he appear here? Isn't the sorcerer god standing right in front of you right now? And it's the person you didn't like just now. Song Zilin didn't say it out loud. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Lan Hongtian who was standing on the stage. Yun Jian had just shifted her gaze to Lan Hongtian who was standing on the stage when Lan Biqing's aggressive voice rang out again. What are you looking at? No matter how much you look, the sorcerer god that my father is talking about is definitely not you. The people around him were all looking at the stage. Lan Biqing pretended not to see anything. Yun Jian looked at that pair of eyes on the stage but Lan Biqing was aggressive. She could imagine that Lan Biqing wanted to pour the red wine on Yun Jian because he was jealous of Yun Jian's beauty. She couldn't help but sigh. Yun Jian's beauty came from inside out. Even if she didn't show her face, she could make girls jealous to death just by looking at her back. Just as Lan Biqing's voice fell, a rather pleasant male voice rang out. Biqing, you're here? When I heard your voice, I knew it was you. When the male voice fell, Yun Jian glanced over. She saw two masked boys standing in front of her. One look and you could tell that their status wasn't low. The one who spoke was the shorter one on the right, and the one on the left didn't say anything. Beside the two boys stood a large group of young boys and girls. When Lan Biqing saw the boy on the left who didn't say anything, his eyes lit up. He shouted excitedly at the boy who didn't say anything, "Brother Shiling, you're here. It took me a long time to find you." As he spoke, Lan Biqing glared at Yun Jian. He looked like he was showing off that he was very familiar with this boy. He pounced on the boy who was called Brother Shiling. Mo Shiling, the recognized genius of the Mo family. It seems that the girl who claims to be the sorcerer goddess doesn't want to go on stage now? Haha, this Lan understands. After the masquerade ball is over, this Lan will invite you up again. Lan Hongtian's words meant that he would not give up until he saw the girl who claimed to be the sorcerer goddess. These words were also directly telling Yun Jian that if you don't show up today, don't even think about leaving. In this regard, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. After Lan Hongtian's words fell, the masquerade ball began. The music in the ballroom suddenly sounded. This was a masquerade ball. Naturally, the boys invited the girls to dance with the music. At this time, Zhu Bufan, who looked delicate and pretty, walked in front of Yun Jian. In front of everyone, he stretched out his hand to Yun Jian and invited her. "Miss, what's your name? Do you want to dance with me?" Zhu Bufan and Mo Shiling were the school hunks of the Dark Noble Academy and were very popular. Even if they were wearing masks, many girls around could recognize them. Therefore, after Zhu Bufan's voice fell, the girls around immediately screamed like crazy. "Wow, who's that girl? Why did Master Fan invite her to dance? God, I'm so envious. Master Fan is so handsome. If only I were that girl." Zhu Bufan was the young master of the Zhu family. He had a high status and good looks. However, just this status alone was enough to make the girls go crazy and scream. At this time, everyone was envious of Yun Jian. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian would be so excited that she would immediately agree to Zhu Bufan's invitation, they saw Yun Jian with her arms crossed in front of her chest. She had no intention of extending her hand at all. Yun Jian stood in place and sneered at Zhu Bufan in front of everyone. Chapter 1779. Lan family, Mo family and Zhu family had the highest status. Mo family was second only to Lan family because of Mo Shiling. Although Zhu family status was lower than Lan family and Mo family, Zhu family status was ranked third among all the families in the entire ballroom. As the future heir of Zhu family, except for Mo Shiling, Zhu Bufan was undoubtedly the ideal partner in the hearts of many girls. But just now, Zhu Bufan was the ideal partner in the hearts of many girls. Among the younger generation except for Mo Shiling, he was the most outstanding one. He was also the school hunk of the Dark Aristocrat Academy and had a high status. But Yun Jian said that he was a waste whose strength was not as good as hers? Just the fact that Yun Jian refused to dance with Zhu Bufan was enough to surprise everyone present. Who was Zhu Bufan? He was the school hunk of the Dark Aristocrat Academy. Other girls were rushing to have a relationship with Zhu Bufan, but this girl, she actually refused Zhu Bufan's invitation to dance. That was fine, but she actually said that Zhu Bufan was a waste? One had to know that in addition to the genius of the Mo family, Mo Shiling, the strongest among the younger generation was Zhu Bufan. What? Waste? Who are you talking about? Even Zhu Bufan himself was confused for a moment before he asked. Naturally, I'm talking about you. Yun Jian sneered. She stood in front of the long table where the pastries were placed. She lazily picked up a piece of osmanthus cake from the long table and threw it into the air. She opened her mouth and threw it into her mouth. Dancing at a masquerade ball was not as good as eating a few pieces of pastries. You actually said that Brother Bufan is a waste? I think you are the waste. Do you have any shame? How can there be such a shameless woman like you in this world? After listening to Yun Jian's words, Lan Biqing, who had not had a chance to scold Yun Jian, was stunned. In front of everyone, he stretched out his hand and shouted at Yun Jian. Too much. Even Mo Shiling, who had been silent, frowned and said such a sentence. Mo Shiling's words were like an imperial edict in the eyes of the girls. That's right. How can you be so excessive? Even young Master Ling said that you've gone too far. How could a girl like her be invited to tonight's masquerade ball? Get the hell out of here. We don't welcome you. Exactly. You're not welcome here. Get out of here. Immediately, the surrounding girls began to curse in unison. Mo Shiling had always regarded himself as aloof. Because of his outstanding strength, he hardly spoke, giving people a feeling of being aloof and difficult to get along with. How can a girl like you be so annoying? No one welcomes you. Hurry up and leave this place. Seeing this, Lan Biqing stood up and said a lot of things. She only said one sentence, how can you do this? Hearing this, Shunbai couldn't help but stand up for Yun Jian. Just as Shunbai finished speaking, Lan Biqing and the surrounding girls bombarded Shunbai with words. Who are you to her? Ah, you're still speaking up for her. Very impressive. You also get out of the ball with us. Among these girls it was unknown who took the lead, but they all helped Lan Biqing to curse Shunbai, who spoke up for Yun Jian. Just as the cursing of the group of people present was extremely loud and unpleasant to listen to. Yun Jian slightly frowned. You guys are very noisy. Yun Jian's indifferent words came out of her mouth. Isn't that because you're too much? You actually said that our young master fan is a waste, you're the waste. When these girls heard this, they became even more enthusiastic. Just as this group of girls opened their mouths and chattered, Yun Jian, who had her hands on the pastry table, suddenly stretched out her hands and picked up more than 10 pieces of pastry on the table. In front of everyone, she directly threw the pastry out. These more than 10 pieces of pastry could be clearly seen in front of everyone's eyes, flying to more than 10 different places. In front of everyone, they blocked the mouths of more than 10 girls who were standing at different angles. All the voices stopped in an instant. Seeing this, Mo Shiling and Zhu Bufan, as well as everyone present, were all shocked. Chapter 1780. There were a few girls who scolded the loudest. When they were scolding Yun Jian, their mouths were the biggest. This small piece of pastry flew directly into the mouths of the girls who scolded the loudest. The girls couldn't control themselves and swallowed the unchewed pastry along with their saliva. These dozens of pieces of pastry successfully blocked the mouths of the girls who were scolding Yun Jian. Yun Jian's words just now made the girls whose mouths were blocked by Yun Jian terrified. It also made Mo Shiling, Zhu Bufan and Lan Biqing, who was blocked by the pastry, feel a chill down their spine. More than a dozen pieces of pastry were thrown together. And when throwing, one had to pay attention to the different frequency and speed of these girls' mouths. Only then could all the pastry be thrown into the mouths of these girls. Yun Jian's move just now made everyone present tremble. Moreover, she had merely narrowed her eyes and tossed out the pastries as if she was just throwing a few ordinary items. This successfully blocked the mouths of the girls. This throwing technique, how accurate must it be to be able to do this? And Yun Jian's last sentence completely shocked everyone present. What did she mean by, "You should be glad that I threw out a pastry and not a blade"? Thinking about it carefully, it really was like this. If Yun Jian had thrown a razor blade and not a pastry just now, she would have been fine. Then the girls who didn't spit out the pastry and swallowed it directly, wouldn't they be scared, so scared that their whole body was trembling in panic? All the girls present, including Lan Biqing, were trembling in fear at this moment. God, that speed just now, it's too scary. The bystanders who saw the scene just now were so scared that they screamed. Mo Shiling, who was known as the strongest teenager, also darkened her face in an instant. No one knew better than Mo Shiling how terrifying Yun Jian's move was. Not to mention whether he could do it or not. Even if he had to throw 3 pieces of pastries into the mouths of 3 girls who were clicking their tongues at the same time, he would never be able to do it. Not to mention that Yun Jian had thrown out more than a dozen pastries. Zhu Bufan was also given a fright. Lin Qiui, who had always been against Yun Jian, was so scared that she took 2 steps back. She swore in her heart that she would never dare to provoke Yun Jian again. Lung Yichen and the other 2 were a little calmer, but they couldn't hide the shock in their hearts. You. Are you trying to be mysterious again? Don't think that your move just now is very powerful. I tell you, my brother Shiling can also do it. No, he's even better than you. Lan Biqing accidentally swallowed the pastry. When she finally regained her senses, she glared fiercely at Yun Jian and said those words. Yun Jian did not pay attention to what Lan Biqing said after that. However, Yun Jian, who had jumped onto the stage, met the eyes of the Lan family's patriarch, Lan Hongtian, in front of everyone's dumbfounded gazes and said, "For thousands of years, you are the first person who dared to capture a member of the shaman tribe right under my nose." Yun Jian's words caused an uproar. She really is the girl who called herself the sorcerer goddess. You are the sorcerer goddess of Yulong mainland. Lan Hongtian looked at Yun Jian and was shocked by her aura. This battle formation. It can't be wrong. She must really be the sorcerer goddess of Yulong mainland. There really is a Yulong mainland in this world. There really is a sorcerer goddess. Lan Hongtian laughed a few times and then suppressed the girl from the shaman tribe. He placed the knife on the girl's neck and ordered Yun Jian, "Listen up. You must listen to my orders in the future. Otherwise I will kill her." This threat made Yun Jian's lips curl into a beautiful red arc. In front of everyone, Yun Jian walked toward Lan Hongtian and the suppressed girl from the shaman tribe without fear. She said something coldly that made everyone present go crazy. "Since you know that I am the sorcerer goddess of the shaman tribe, then you should know my principles." "What principles?" Lan Hongtian heard this and took a deep breath and asked. Yun Jian, who was standing on the stage, flipped her right hand in front of everyone and a knife that made all the aristocratic families stand up straight appeared. God-vanquishing blade. That knife was the God-vanquishing knife. The God-vanquishing knife had only appeared in the books recorded by their ancestors. It was said that even the people of Yulong mainland regarded this knife as a legendary weapon. Before the aristocratic families could react, Yun Jian, who was holding the butterfly knife of the God-vanquishing knife, slowly walked toward Lan Hongtian with the knife in her hand. Her smile was so strange that it made everyone present shudder. "Listen up. I am the daughter of the shaman tribe. The principles of the sorcerer goddess are." Chapter 1782. At this moment, Yun Jian seemed to be a different person compared to the original Yun Jian. The Yun Jian who first appeared in front of Lan Biqing, Mo Shiling, Zhu Bufan and the others was wearing a mask from the masquerade party. She gave people a very mysterious feeling, but just looking at her figure gave people a feeling of extreme beauty. At that time, Yun Jian really looked like a little girl who came to attend the banquet, pure and moving. But throwing away that pure aura at this moment, Yun Jian gave people the feeling that she was the king of the jungle. Although she was wearing a mask, her words just now coupled with her flamboyant figure at this moment. At this moment, Yun Jian was like a god who controlled killing. Seeing her like this, Lan Biqing and the group of girls who were against her at the beginning were stunned, and it made Mo Xiling and Zhu Bufan's hearts beat violently. So domineering. So arrogant. So arrogant. Yun Jian's arrogant look just now, not to mention the most outstanding genius of the younger generation, Mo Xiling, would not dare to do so. Mo Xiling was afraid that she did not even have the courage to look straight into the eyes of the Lan family's head, Lan Hongtian. Therefore Mo Xiling and Zhu Bufan, who wanted to tease Yun Jian at the beginning, did not look particularly good. Sorcerer God. Sorcerer God. Sorcerer God. At this moment, the Shen family, who was standing not far away, joined forces with the Lung family and all the other families who fought against the Lan family and shouted at Yun Jian on the stage. Standing on the stage, Yun Jian heard the shouts and naturally knew that these shouts must have been organized by Shen Wei. If they did not fight against the Lan family and this group of families who colluded with each other, when would they? What's more, they had the support of the Sorcerer God. Shen Wei was not stupid and naturally understood this point. Yun Jian did not respond. At this moment, her eyes were red as she walked in the direction of Lan Hongtian, who was suppressing the witch tribe girl. When the people of Yulong continent came to Earth, they had no spiritual power, but if they used it forcibly they could still use spiritual power, but they had to pay a price. However, Yun Jian could tell that the young witch girl, who was covered in wounds from the beatings, had no spiritual energy left in her body. He had heard from Shen Wei that the Lan family had gathered together because they wanted to rush back to the Yulong continent one day and attempt to rule the Yulong continent. Therefore, since a few hundred years ago, the Lan family had been researching a potion that could make the people of the Yulong continent lose their spiritual power. And now the experiment was a success. Needless to say, this young lady from the sorcerer tribe had been drugged with this potion. Hence, even if she was in the Yulong continent, she would not be able to use her spiritual energy. Lan Hongtian captured the young girl from the witch tribe. This action made Yun Jian very angry. What angered Yun Jian even more was that Lan Hongtian had not only captured the young women from the sorcerer tribe, he had also tortured and beaten the young women from the sorcerer tribe. With the god-vanquishing blade in her hand, Yun Jian walked towards Lan Hongtian without stopping. Seeing the god-vanquishing blade in Yun Jian's hand, Lan Hongtian, who was holding the blade against the young woman from the sorcerer tribe's neck, was frightened. He threw away the blade and stepped on the young woman from the sorcerer tribe mercilessly. He then fished out a bottle of potion from his body. Since you won't listen to me, I won't hold back either. You should have heard of this potion. As long as I sprinkle it on the people of the Yulong continent, you will immediately lose your spiritual energy. So what if you are the sorcerer god? You must listen to me. Lan Hongtian took out his trump card. He looked at Yun Jian and shouted. The crowd below the stage, including the people from the Shen family who were shouting just now, felt their hearts tighten. That potion. It would make the sorcerer god lose his spiritual energy. Could it be that the sorcerer god was being threatened just like that? Just as they were thinking about it, they saw Yun Jian laugh coldly. She did not stop but continued to walk towards Lan Hongtian. Looks like you are stubborn. I won't hold back then. After Lan Hongtian finished speaking, he opened the cap of the potion and sprinkled it on Yun Jian's body. Oh no, quickly dodge. Shen Wei was so frightened that his expression changed drastically. Everyone below the stage was stunned. Just as the potion was sprinkled on Yun Jian's body, they saw Yun Jian's figure flash. Her speed suddenly became as fast as thunder. In a breath's time, she appeared in front of Lan Hongtian from 5 meters away. The god-vanquishing blade stabbed into Lan Hongtian's heart in front of everyone at a speed that Lan Hongtian did not even have time to react. In the next second, Yun Jian pulled out her blade and kicked Lan Hongtian off the stage before he could react. Just as the crowd was so frightened that their backs straightened, Yun Jian's cold voice rang out a second before Lan Hongtian closed his eyes and stopped breathing. Chapter 1783. In the eyes of these aristocratic families, other than the sorcerer goddess of Yulong mainland, the internationally renowned slaying god was also a person that these aristocratic families and the people present had heard of. Yun Jian's last sentence, kosher mercenaries, slaying god, made it clear to those who did not know who slaying god was. Who else could slaying god of kosher mercenaries be? Other than slaying god, who was ranked first on the international secret agent ranking, who else belonged to kosher mercenaries? Many of the students present might not know who slaying god of kosher mercenaries was, but these aristocratic families' children had been educated by their families since young. They were very familiar with slaying god of kosher mercenaries. This was a terrifying existence that they did not dare to provoke. Therefore, when Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone present, especially Lan Biqing, Mo Shiling, and Zhu Bufan, including the group of girls who had mocked and ridiculed Yun Jian and were aggressive toward Yun Jian like a machine gun. In the end, Yun Jian sealed their mouths with pastries. Everyone's pupils contracted, their faces were tense, and their mouths were agape. The moment Lan Hongtian closed his eyes, he heard Yun Jian's voice. It was too late for regrets. The potion that the Lan family had planned for hundreds of years and spent so much manpower and energy to develop was ineffective against the sorcerer goddess. And she was slaying God, ranked first on the secret agent ranking in the country. Even if Yun Jian had lost her spiritual power with the Lan family's power, forget about capturing Yun Jian, the entire Lan family would have been annihilated. And now the Lan family was done for. Completely done for. It was also done for. The Lan family's years of hard work were all gone after he had wronged Yun Jian. In that instant, countless emotions flashed through everyone's mind. 3 seconds later, Lan Hongtian was kicked off the stage. Fresh blood spurted out from his heart and drew an arc in the air. Lan Hongtian was brutally smashed to the ground and died a tragic death. For those who were stabbed by the god-vanquishing blade, even the gods of deity continent would have their souls destroyed, let alone humans. Lan Hongtian's soul was destroyed. He could not escape. The families who were in cahoots with Lan Hongtian shrank back when they saw Lan Hongtian being stabbed to death by Yun Jian and kicked off the stage. Even the masters of the Mo family and Zhu family, who were in cahoots with the Lan family, did not dare to step forward. The Lan family's patriarch, Lan Hongtian, had committed countless atrocities. In order to develop that bottle of medicine, he had captured thousands of innocent people and killed them for experiments. Since they could not capture people from the Yulong continent, they could only capture ordinary people from Earth. A bottle of potion was very corrosive to ordinary people. As long as a failed product was sprinkled on an ordinary person, that person would be corroded alive and die. Therefore, the God-vanquish-God experiment was a person. The Lan family's master was Slin. God-vanquish Lan Shenwei had long been annoyed by Lan Hongtian's actions of harming the innocent. However, Lan Hongtian and his group were powerful. He could not do anything about them. Now that he saw Yun Jian killing such a heinous person in the form of his soul being destroyed, Shenwei immediately took the lead to call out to Yun Jian, "Sorcerer Goddess! Sorcerer Goddess!" When Lan Biqing realized that his father had been killed by Yun Jian and was about to rush over, the families who were in cahoots with the Lan family had already retreated with their people. The Mo family and Zhu family retreated quickly when they saw this. However, before they could leave, Lan Su, Gunyanji, and Qing Yu came from afar with a large group of people and surrounded the place. Although the Mo family and Zhu family were afraid of Yun Jian, they did not recognize Lan Su and the other two when they saw Lan Su and the other two surrounding the place. Therefore, the Mo family's master shouted at Lan Su, trying to scare Lan Su away from his voice. "Who are you?" Just as the Mo family's master finished speaking, Lan Su's voice, which was no less loud than the Mo family's master's, rang out. Chapter 1784. Lan Su? You mean Lan Su, the first guardian of the sorcerer goddess in our ancestors' records? The daughter of the sorcerer tribe sorcerer goddess who is second only to the sorcerer goddess in Yulong mainland? Just as Lan Su finished speaking, Master Mo and Master Zhu who were standing beside Master Mo exclaimed in shock. The sorcerer goddess was also a person who was recorded in great detail in the family records of these noble families' ancestors. When the sorcerer goddess was mentioned, Lan Su, as the first guardian of the sorcerer goddess, was also emphasized. It was true that the sorcerer goddess was the pinnacle of existence in Yulong mainland. As the first guardian of the sorcerer goddess, Lan Su's position was also top-notch in Yulong mainland. What? Our ancestors migrated from Yulong mainland hundreds and thousands of years ago and we've never seen anyone from Yulong mainland until now. Why are there so many of them here now? And they're all the legendary figures in Yulong mainland. The Mo family head, who had been shouting at Lan Su and trying to use his loud voice to suppress Lan Su, narrowed his eyes at this moment. He suddenly became timid and didn't even dare to speak loudly. Lan Su, Gunyanji, and Qing Yu walked toward Yun Jian after getting people to surround the scene. Then, under everyone's watchful eyes, Lan Su and Gunyanji bowed to Yun Jian the way Yulong mainland greeted the sorcerer goddess. Sorcerer goddess. Yun Jian raised a brow. Since she had been wearing a mask since the beginning, everyone could only see her slim and well-proportioned figure but not her face. Yun Jian had openly exposed her identity today because she was wearing a mask. With so many people present, It was impossible for 2 students from aristocratic schools to use a 3-hour amnesia serum. The cost was high. If everyone were to use it, Qingyu would probably chase her all over the streets. Clean up the scene. Take care of all the noble families who have harmed people with the Lan family as the leader. Yulong mainland doesn't need these noble families who have harmed people. Yun Jian's voice, which was as beautiful as the sounds of nature, rang out and spread to every corner of the place. Hearing this, all the people who were in cahoots with the Lan family were paralyzed. It's over. Not only was the Lan family finished, all the other aristocratic families were finished as well. Yes. Lan Su, Gu Nianji, and Qingyu acknowledged the order and nodded at Yun Jian. Yun Jian handed the task of dealing with these aristocratic families to Lan Su and the other 2. At that moment, Yun Jian turned her head slightly and looked sideways at the girl from the shaman tribe. She moved her red lips and said to her, "Which elder of the shaman tribe are you a descendant of?" Most of the girls in the sorcerer tribe were descendants of the sorcerer tribe elders. I am Elder Wu Qing's granddaughter. My name is Wu Lin. The young witch girl, who was covered in wounds, bowed to Yun Jian and said, "All right, you can return to Yulong mainland now," Yun Jian said to Wu Lin. "Thank you, sorcerer goddess. I was accidentally brought to Earth. I didn't expect to be caught by them. Not only did they beat me, they even forced me to tell them the way to Yulong mainland. I didn't even tell them." Wu Lin looked up at Yun Jian and said proudly. She was proud because she did not betray the shaman tribe out of fear. She did not betray the sorcerer goddess either. After sending Wu Lin off, the ball was almost over. Yun Jian did not remove her mask halfway through. Other than Lin Qiui, Leng Yichen, and a few others, no one knew Yun Jian. At that moment, Yun Jian stood in the aisle and looked into Xin Wei's eyes. The person who harmed Xin Wei's son, Xin Shaoqing, was the Lan family's master. Xin Wei asked Yun Jian to protect his daughter, Xin Bai, because he was afraid that the Lan family would turn against his daughter. Now that the Lan family was destroyed, Yun Jian did not need to promise to protect Xin Bai's daughter for another month. Xin Wei looked into Yun Jian's eyes. He thanked her first before speaking. Chapter 1785. Of course, recovering all his memories as a supreme magus was not something that could be done within a short period of time. Xin Wei was just an ordinary person. It was already impressive that he could make such a potion. Yun Jian was not afraid that Xin Wei was lying to her. He knew Yun Jian's identity long ago. Yun Jian could tell a liar from their gaze. "I'll send someone to deliver the potion to you in 2 days. It'll take about a month or 2 because I still have to make the potion," Xin Wei said. Yun Jian nodded. As long as she could recover her memories, time was not a problem. After everything was settled, Yun Jian returned to Longmen City. Originally, he had expected to stay in southern city of the Jiang province for a month. Unexpectedly, he had only stayed in southern city of the Jiang province for 3 to 4 days. After the middle of October, the weather was turning colder. People who wore thin short-sleeved shirts and shorts in summer were slowly putting on their jackets and long pants. At night, the weather turned cold and gloomy. Tonight, in particular, the temperature had dropped to the point that it was no different from winter. "Phew, it's so cold. Little Strawberry, don't go back. Why do you have to go back to school? Why don't you stay with us?" Qingyu rubbed her hands by the heater and told Luo Berry. Qingyu had an air conditioner at home, but it was broken in the past 2 days. The weather was neither too hot nor too cold and the temperature was just right, so Qingyu was too lazy to fix it. She did not expect the temperature to drop to single digits today. The weather after the middle of October was getting colder. The temperature difference between summer and winter in Zhe province, the southernmost part of the province, was already huge. With the temperature dropping so much today, Qingyu did not even bother to stretch her hand, let alone fix the air conditioner. "Sister Jian, right? I told you to let little Strawberry stay with us for a few more days. Why do you have to go back to school so early? Can I bring you guys to play video games, race cars, and play mahjong? Is it fun?" Seeing that Luo Berry did not answer, Qingyu turned to ask Yun Jian, who was slouching on the sofa with her arms resting on the back and her eyes closed. Yun Jian replied softly without opening her eyes. After Leng Mei was taken away by Di Lin, Qingyu's house was finally quiet for a while. However, Lan Su came back not long after and Qingyu's house was noisy again. However, Lan Su had been taken away by Adam ever since he returned from the southern part of the province. With that, Qingyu and Gu Niangu were left alone in Qingyu's house. Of course, the last sentence was just her imagination because Luo Berry had not left yet. However, Luo Berry was planning to go home today, so Qingyu and Gu Nianji would be alone in each other's arms for the rest of the day. I think I should go home, Luo Berry said after a moment of silence. She hadn't seen Imo Sen here for several days. Maybe he didn't want to see her? She was such an idiot. Last time she was almost defiled by her cousin, and he happened to see it. Oh, little strawberry, why are you so stubborn? You still want to go back to school to be abused. Don't go. Stay, sister will take care of you. Qingyu curled up into a ball from the cold, but she did not forget to ask Luo Berry to stay. It was then that the door to Qingyu's house opened. It was Saturday today, so Yun Jian saw her own brother, Yun Yi, walking in when she looked up. Yun Yi saw Qingyu curled up into a ball by the stove when he walked in, but he was too lazy to help her. Instead, he went back to his bedroom to grab a blanket to cover her. Yun Yi knew Qingyu's habits after dating her for so long. Sometimes, when Qingyu was really frozen into a ball, she was too lazy to walk back to her bedroom to grab a blanket to cover herself. Hence, Yun Yi hurried to Qingyu's bedroom and covered her with her blanket, mumbling incessantly, "What are you talking about? Why didn't you walk back to your bedroom to get a blanket when you're so cold?" That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.